Okay. So here we are once again. We already have a comment from Dubier Sierra. Probably said that horribly, but hello. Yes, welcome to the live stream today. We are here just like every week, every Thursday at about this time. And yeah, any questions or comments, let me know. I'll try to bring up some recent comments here. If things look a little different, it's because I got my new monitor here and I'll be getting my new computer next week. So the webcam is here instead of over there. But let's see, this is so slow. Always slow. Comments. So we had some interesting comments this week. Some things that will probably be useful for you guys here. The first one is actually I just posted a short video talking about how to pronounce the sentence, he is not alive. So, of course, my keyboard's over here, right? He is not alive. And I guess maybe I can move this over here. That's gonna work. Let's find out. Yeah, that'll work. Okay, good. So, it was kind of a random question, but that's okay. And this person wanted to know how we pronounce it, how we what the stress pattern is, and all that stuff. So I talked about all that. You can go watch that short. That is the most recent thing I published. But one question that they had was, I talked about how not alive. Hello, people. Yes. So Gabriel, welcome. Yes, my card reader gave out, unfortunately. So that's okay. I'm getting a new one in the mail today, so I should be able to get on with the editing tonight or tomorrow. And Samir, or Samir, probably Samir. I really don't know how to say it. So, first question: how is your computer going? It is going. This one here. I mean, the computer works. It's fine. It's just not ideal for editing, video editing, and my card reader just broke, and so the new one will be getting here next week. I just ordered it, and hopefully it'll be here Wednesday, but it might take until Friday. So we'll see. Hello, Sedent. Welcome to our live stream again. Hope you're doing well. Hope everybody's doing well. So in lieu of other questions, I'll continue with what I was talking about. So not alive. And when I was analyzing the sentence, I talked about how the T in not will turn into a flap D and connect over not alive, not alive, not alive. That's loud and annoying. And this person said that they thought because not is stressed, that the T is supposed to be a true T, which is a term I don't really use because it's not doesn't really mean much. And so I talked about how there's different things you can do. If you really stress it, right? He's not alive. He's not alive. And you really emphasize not, then you can easily stop that T. Or you can even maybe push it out as a weak T. He's not alive. That's also another possibility. There's more than one answer here, but the most common thing without any special emphasis is to flap the D, turn the T into a flap D and say not alive, not alive, nada, nada. So, in case you guys didn't know, right? That's one thing I want to talk about a lot on this channel is how there's not just one answer usually, right? It's a very dynamic thing that depends on various possibilities. Finn, welcome to the chat here. Do you know when the lesson on the short A vowel? Yes, I hate that term. You use it just to make me mad. I know. It's coming out. Yeah. So, well, it would have been out probably last night or this morning, except as I posted in a recent comment, community post update, my card reader for my camera card died, and I'm getting a new computer. I have a new USB card reader coming today, so I can edit that video later today, and it should be posted, I would assume, tomorrow sometime, maybe tomorrow night. So it's coming very, very soon. Just we have some technical difficulties here. Davin, welcome, Davin, always. Hey, how are you? I'm okay. Sorry, I haven't been posting much and such. I am keeping up myself. I think it's a typo. Keeping myself in the loop regards. Wait, yeah, okay, I can't read. In regards to everything you're uploading in community posts, good. Yeah, there's no up there. I assume that's a typo. You could say like keeping myself up to date with everything, blah blah blah. But anyway, yeah. Good. Okay. I hope the new PC will make your life and work a lot easier. Yes, it definitely will. It is so much better. So much better. Like it has a dedicated graphics card. That alone is going to make everything so much easier on the editor. But yeah, it's going to be awesome. Can't wait for the short A lesson as well. Yeah, short A. It's not a short A. It's A. That's the funny thing is, I mean, aside from common spelling patterns, the short A, the A sound, has nothing to do with A. A is a different sound. This is one reason why things get all confusing, because A is a sound, which happens to be the name of the letter A, but A is a completely separate sound that has nothing to do with A. It's just commonly spelled with the letter A. So it's not an A sound, it's A. Anyway. Okay, so moving on. Any questions today, guys? As I mentioned when I started the stream, if you see a different background, it's because my new monitor got here and it's right here, which you can see it there. But I don't have a webcam. I ordered that as well because this webcam is built in, so I need a separate webcam for that one. Otherwise, I would be facing this way again. So let's see. Other comments, questions. What do we see recently? No help for review. Okay. So, what else do we have? So yes, like oh yeah, John isn't here yet. John Two Corner. I know he has a question he wants me to clarify, so we'll wait till he gets here for that. Yeah, the ad lesson is coming out. That's the big news. I have a question about the meaning of roll through. Yeah, not anything too interesting in the comments. A couple of things, but no questions, guys. Come on. I have noticed something unusual recently. Conscious efforts aren't helping me sound very clear and natural. It's kind of becoming an obstacle. Okay, how so? Conscious efforts is very vague and broad. I know in the direction of what you're talking about, but like, what exactly are you doing, right? Because it could be that some things that you're doing, maybe you're not quite doing them in the best way or in the right way, or it could just be something that doesn't work well for you. And there are other things that you could probably try to do instead. But yeah, elaborate on that if you can. We can maybe dive into that. Gabriel, just a trivial question. Do Americans pronounce the word yes with a vowel? Ask Davin. Davin likes to use that in writing. Yes. So as an exaggeration of the word, not a like normal standard way to pronounce it. Yes, it's something that we can do, but it's always an intentional manipulation. It's a breaking of the sound, changing it into a sound that it doesn't, that the word does not use. for a special effect. Now, are there some people who just use "a" naturally? Possibly, I would be surprised. But it's usually used in something like this, right? Or like "yes," right? And it's just exaggeration. It's a breaking of the normal way to say it. So the short answer would be no. No, we don't. It's supposed to be "eh." Now, let me see here. Yes, 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 yes. One thing that can happen, which is interesting, I don't think I noticed this before. So there's the lazy "a," which is something that I think many other teachers and even linguists mistakenly identify as "eh," the third vowel, because it's not "eh." It's just a lazier form of "a." And if I am speaking lazily, like if I clearly enunciate yes and I say yes, yeah, yes, yes, yes. But if I'm speaking maybe a little more lazily, like, kind of, I guess, normally, like yes, 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 yeah, 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 yeah. So I'm not saying yeah, like yes, yes. It's not a full enunciated "a" sound, but you could use the lazy "a." Um, I would generally recommend just to avoid that point because it doesn't really matter that much. But the um, the lazy "a" is very close to "eh." It is not "eh." It's very, very, very close, but it still sounds like "ah." And you may not even actually be able to hear the difference because they're so close. I can clearly hear the difference. So yeah, technicality. I guess it's possible if you do it that way. By the way, do you tend to use the fourth vowel in "na" or do you say it like "nah"? I use both. Um, I mean that's the informal way to say no. It can sound very informal, actually. So I don't really use it all the time. Um, but yeah, I use it. It comes out and "nah, nah." Um, I think I probably use "nah" more. Um, "Nah" is like I would use that more in sort of like an exaggerating, joking kind of way, just to like get like a particular sound to it, like "nah, man, nah." Um, just like it's kind of like it sounds like I'm playing with it. Where "nah" is just like that's just kind of like a very general, standard, informal, lazy way to say no. Nah. Um, of course, there are some people who use "nah" as like the normal way they do it, and that's perfectly fine as well. But um, in other people's speeches, such as myself, it's not necessarily the standard. It'll give a slightly different sound or feeling to it. Samir, I noticed recently I had problems to pronounce. So problems with pronouncing. You don't have to actually say "with." You can drop the "with" and just say problems pronouncing. But we're not going to use "to pronounce" there. So I have problems pronouncing VF sounds after TH, like in "with friends." Okay. Is there any tips or only hard work will help? Um, Hard work is not countable, so just no A, only hard work. Uh, so any tips? Well, so we have to understand when it comes to I'm not typing, F and the voiceless TH, even to native ears, they can sound very, very similar, even sometimes like the same. Um, and then V and the voiced TH, we have a similar problem. Those are usually a little easier to tell apart because of the voice, but for the voiceless one, it can be really hard even for us to tell the difference. And it doesn't really matter all that much because obviously, like if I say from, it's not thrum, right? It's not like it's not a th sound there. It's going to be the word from because thrum is not a word. So Usually we can hear the difference. I don't want to make it seem like, oh, like, it's just a stupid thing that you don't have to worry about, because it is something that you should train your ears for, but and your mouth for. Um, but as I always say, right, whenever we're talking about going from one sound to another, you want to make sure that you can do each of those sounds individually very well. Because if you can't do them individually and then you try to put them together, that's actually probably your problem, because you can't do one of those or both of those sounds. So we want to be able to make sure we can do a nice good TH. Preferably, you want to be able to do it enunciated, because there are times where we enunciate it and it's nice, clear, with, with, okay? That can also help with some combinations, like going from TH to F. More clearly enunciating the TH can actually make it kind of clearer that we're going from the TH to the F. It's like with. That's all it is, right? Because the TH, you can't have your lip too close. That's a common mistake for people trying to do the TH sound. Their lip is too close. And then they sound like an F. So you need to get that lip away. And of course, you don't have to put your tongue between the teeth for the TH. It's, you go, it doesn't matter. As long as that lip is away. And then you bring that lip up, right? It's actually going to come up and in a little bit to touch slightly here. And then that's the F. So you can practice that. Just practice going like in one big breath. Right? Going between the two sounds. I was going to say something else about that. Yeah, so we know that there's other ways to do the TH, like in with, we can do because it's voiceless. Actually, with the word with, it could be voiced or voiceless. It doesn't really matter for the TH there, but more if the sound after it is voiceless, it's much more likely that it's going to be a voiceless TH anyway. So regardless, we can do that dental TD variation, and since it's voiceless, it would be a dental T. So you can say with friends, and once you release that T, you just bring the lip up with friends, with friends, with friends. That can maybe make it easier for you to do. And that would be fine as well. But at the end of the day, there is going to be some work involved, and you just kind of got to get used to it. So, but those would be the tips I have for that. Yeah. Okay, I might have asked this ages ago, but can you explain again, how do outlet plug socket differ from each other? I think you did ask that ages ago. That sounds vaguely familiar. Like, what specific part of the tool do the words refer to? I always get them mixed up. Yeah. They're synonyms. That may not be technically accurate to say. I'm not an electrician, but in terms of everyday use, outlet, plug, and socket are synonyms. It doesn't matter. Plug it into the outlet, plug it into the plug it into the socket. We use all of them. So no difference. Maybe I gave a different answer before and I don't know. But yeah, they're basically synonyms. Oh, that might have been what I said before. Yeah, because I guess technically, like the outlet would be like the thing in the wall. The plug would be like the actual, like the plug or socket would be the thing that you plug the thing into, not like the thing that's in the wall itself, but the actual part that plugs in. So technically, the outlet should refer to like the whole thing, but there's no reason to split hairs there and make a difference. So you say like plug it into the outlet, like it doesn't matter. So I probably said something like that last time. That sounds about right. They're basically synonyms. Rodrigo, welcome. Oh, I see you got another color, fancy yellow color. Yeah, look at that. Moving up in the world. You just want to show off your new membership color. That's all it is. I see. Yeah. Just wanted to say hi. I haven't been here in a while. Yeah, I haven't really heard much from you, so that's okay. Thanks for stopping by. If you have questions, of course. Looks like Wendell has lots of questions, which is okay. Yeah, if you have questions, let me know. Otherwise, you can just hang out and enjoy the live stream. But thank you again for your support as always. Okay, Wendell. let's get to Wendell's long question or series of questions. Good afternoon. Well, good afternoon to you too. Yes. Although I assume where you are, you're probably not in California, which means it's probably not the afternoon where you are. So good, whatever time. Yeah. I have 8 questions. 8 questions. That's a lot of questions. Maybe you can answer them all. Maybe we'll find out. Sorry, they are so many. So not they are, there are. There are. Really be careful with your ears because this might be a listening mistake. We don't want to say they, even though that seems to kind of make sense. We wouldn't use they here. We're going to use there. I mean, like there exists, like there are 8 questions in existence, right? That you're going to ask. So we're going to use there. And then in speech, there and are can reduce to there're, just like they and are can reduce to there. But now they are sounds like, right? So it's going to get confusing. So this contraction, they are, is pronounced exactly like this word there. But if it's there are in speech, not in writing, but in speech, this can also contract and we'll get 2 R's, there're. And so be careful because this might come from a listening mistake. Or maybe it's just a typo or a grammar mistake or whatever. But if it's based on your ears, you want to be very careful with that. But anyway, sorry there are so many, but I need to ask. All right, I need a quick answer if possible. Okay, here they are. See, now here they are. This is a good use of they are, yes. What's the difference in pronunciation between the letter W and the long oo sound in blue? Okay, number one, as you probably know, I don't like to use long and short because they don't technically exist. And well, they technically do exist, but they don't really exist in English. So the oo sound, this would just be the oo vowel sound, right? Which I would write with the letter U. So the difference in pronunciation, this is a very good question. So the end of oo, o, and ow all end in a place that is close to W. Okay, they don't start in the same place, but they end in a place that's close to W. So when we do oo, o, or ow, we're going to bring the lips around, and in clearly enunciated speech, they're going to go a bit more, right? When we're speaking faster, both the W and the oo, o, ow ending will sort of not be as deep. It'll be more shallow, and that's fine. But I'm going to just, to make it nice and clear, I'm going to show you the clear enunciated version. So, ooh, 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 okay? Ooh, 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 ooh. So we only get to that point. Ooh, that's the end of the sound. Now, if I do a W, okay, and I'll also show you from the side because that's important. Ooh, 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 okay? Now for a W, 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 w. Okay, so number one, you should be able to hear a bit of a deeper sound, but number two, if you look closely, the opening, the little hole that's the opening in my mouth here, if I do ooh, 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 w, w, it's very, very small for the W. Okay, and the lips will come out more, they'll be tensed a little bit more. As I said, in faster speech or more relaxed speech, these don't have to come out quite so much. So like ooh, you could say ooh, 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 and that's fine. That's not a different sound. That's not the like in book or anything. It's just we're not clearly bringing the lips all the way around to clearly enunciate the sound. It's the same sound. And it's not shorter or anything like that necessarily, unless we're talking about like the stress or the speed. It has nothing to do with actual like quality of the sound itself. It's the same exact sound. It's just lazier. So that would be the difference there. The W is deeper. The lips come out more. They're a little more tense. And that hole is much, much smaller. I know that this can be a big problem because they sound very similar, but they're completely different. This is why I say that W only exists at the start of a syllable, or in combinations like question KW, like that's okay. It's still at the start there. And it never, even though the spelling, like say how is spelled HOW, there's no W sound there. It's just the end of the ow diphthong, which doesn't go all the way into W. If I did, it would be how, or with blue, it would be blue, blue, blue. And we don't do that. Okay, so there's no W sound there. It's just the end of oo or ow or o. Same thing with go, 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 go. We don't say it that way. We say go. Okay, it doesn't close as much. So very good question there. Why do I sometimes notice native speakers pronounce the word to in a clear and enunciated way when it is supposed to be pronounced in a reduced way? Just try to record yourself. Excellent question. Okay, this is another thing that I've talked a bit about. And remember, the preposition to is a very susceptible word. I mean, it's easily changeable word based on what's around it. But okay, to. Most commonly, most of the time, okay, there's no rule that says you have to do this, but most commonly, it reduces to ta. Why? Because it's a one-syllable function word, right? It's just grammar. It doesn't tell us any content. It's the super common grammar word, right? We use it everywhere. And so usually function words, and especially extremely common function words, will often tend to get a reduction, most commonly to a schwa sound, because that's the most common reduction sound. And so, to the fully enunciated way to say the word, the way that the word is like supposed, I don't even want to say supposed to be because that's not accurate, but the way that it is ideally, perfectly, clearly enunciated, supposed to be pronounced is with oo, to. That's the full pronunciation of the word. The most common pronunciation is the reduction, right? That's why it says in a reduced way, meaning that there's the full pronunciation and then the reduced way to say it. We're changing it into a schwa, making it even shorter and smaller. Okay. That's point number one. As I said, there's no rule that says you have to do that. Now, if you never do that, you're going to sound strange. Your speech will sound a little strange because we're going to notice you're always saying to, and we're like, why are you always fully pronouncing the word? However, one rule that you can remember is that the full pronunciation of a word, it doesn't matter if it's normally reduced 99% of the time, the fully enunciated pronunciation of a word is always possible. It's always possible. If you stress the word, we tend to unreduce it. So that's one time where it becomes more likely to not reduce it. To obviously is a word that very rarely, if ever, will be stressed because of the word that it is. But it could always just happen to come out as the fully enunciated word. It's possible. It can happen that way. There's nothing wrong with it at all. And as I mentioned before, I think I mentioned this last week or the week before, if the sound after the word to is a vowel sound, okay, number one, you can still reduce it and we will commonly reduce it. So if I say, for example, to eat, like I want to eat, okay, so I can say to eat, I can go from the to the e, no problem, to eat. I want, well, I'll probably say wanna, but I want to eat, I want to eat, I want to eat, right? Okay. However, if there's a vowel sound after to, now we also have the option of linking the fully enunciated oo pronunciation with a small w into that vowel, right? That's one of the linking rules. And so if there's a vowel sound after to, it's still not guaranteed, it's not a rule, you don't have to do it, but it becomes a little more likely that what can happen, is that we'll actually keep the oo, link it with a small w, to eat, to eat, to eat. There's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. And notice I say it's a small w because it's actually closer to, like, we're not going fully into the w. It's just sort of like we get a w-like sound between the two. When oo or o or ow goes into a vowel sound, we get that small w effect. But it's not actually a full w. So that's why. This is why I'm telling you guys, real pronunciation is dynamic. Okay, this has nothing to do with formality, being informal or formal or anything like that. It has nothing to do with how educated you are or anything. This is just the normal, natural variation. It's not a dialect thing. It's not a regional thing. This is the normal, natural variation of how American speech just works. Okay, it's super normal. So there's more than one right answer here. Okay, you can say to, you can say ta, but most of the time, in most cases, we are going to reduce to ta, and that's going to be the most common thing that happens. So a lot of these rules that you guys learn about in pronunciation, they're actually not rules. They're just things that are very likely to happen, like the probably most likely, um, given general circumstances. As soon as we put that vowel after to, now it's maybe 50-50 or oo, but if the vowel isn't after to, then it's like probably 95 or more percent that's going to be reduced. But it could still come out ooh, there's no problem with it. Um, Especially if you're speaking slowly, right? That's another factor. If you're speaking more slowly, more clearly, like just try to do it. Okay, now I can say just try to do it and still reduce it. That's fine too. But if I'm speaking more slowly, it's maybe a little more likely that I'm going to say to. Basically, it doesn't matter. That's the point here. It doesn't really matter. There's more than one possibility. But it is affected by various things. Does N cancel the G in the word English? That's an interesting question. Does it cancel the G? What do we mean by that? As in, like, there's no G in it? So, like, English? English? Or something like that? I'm not sure I fully understand the question, but what I will say here, you can elaborate if you want. What I will say here is, so number one, this is not n, it's not up here. This is the back N, as I call it, the back N, normally written NG. There's not actually supposed to be a g. It's not g, right? A small little g that happens is okay. It's a consequence of releasing that position. You can get a little g, and there's nothing wrong with it. But there's not supposed to be a g. So when we say English, okay, this is actually a little bit of a weird one because English. See, I can do it with no g at all. English, English. That's perfectly fine. Here, because it's in the middle of a word and because g and o can sort of overlap very easily because one is back here and then the other one is back here and you can kind of do them at the same time. You can hear a little bit more of a g in this case. Gl, English, like glass, right? That's supposed to be a g. English. So it doesn't really matter in this case. Sort of a bit of a special case, but it's not the normal and it's the back end. And you could pronounce that G in this particular word if you wanted to, but it's not supposed to be there. Could any native English speaker understand or use any phrasal verb? I would probably say yes. I mean, sometimes I get questions from students about, particular phrases or phrasal verbs, or even occasionally some words that I have just never heard before. So I think most phrasal verbs aren't regional, like they're just general, but they're at least say like within American English. I know in British English they have some other phrasal verbs that I'm like, okay, I guess that makes sense, but I've never heard that before. So maybe there's some regional variation, but there's, I would say almost never in my experience when I have heard a phrasal verb from another American that I didn't understand. And in fact, this also counts, right? We sometimes, this isn't something that necessarily happens like every day all the time, but sometimes we will spontaneously generate a new phrasal verb that doesn't actually exist to fit a particular situation. And I'm really horrible thinking of examples of this. I need to write them down when I find them in real life. So I can't give you any examples here, but I've noticed that happens. And the person I'm talking to, based on the context of the situation of what I'm talking about, they will be able to understand it very easily. And the reason for that is, as I've said, the prepositions have a core feeling that we can use logic to find. That's the logic of the prepositions. And verbs also have a core feeling, which we'd also probably use logic to find. I'm going to write that book later. And then when you take a verb and a preposition, you put them together, in the subconscious mind, the preposition has its core feeling and all the roots of how it connects with the rest of the language. That particular verb has its core feeling and the roots of how it connects with the rest of the language. And when you put them together, number one, you can create multiple meanings. Some phrasal verbs have 2, 3, 4, 5 meanings. because of the different possibilities that we could have based on those core feelings and their surface meanings that they create. And so, in the mind of a native speaker, even if somebody creates a new phrasal verb in a specific context to describe something, um, the listener, whoever hears that, the speaker creating it is pulling it out of that network in the subconscious, and the listener who hears it will be able to interpret it from that subconscious network as well, of how everything is connected. So, yeah, it's usually not a problem. In the following question, are you American? Oh, I see where. hmm. See, so you put "are you" and then part of American in caps, which I would interpret as stressing. So I don't know if maybe that's just the part that you're highlighting, but it seems kind of weird to have that there because now you're talking about reduction. So is the total reduction "are you" stupid IPA? Uh-huh. Not super polite. That is, it's better to stress "are" to make more polite and use it to talk to deputy. I don't know if that like if you're on your phone and that's a autocorrect from your phone or something. Talk to deputy. Deputy is like the person underneath the police sheriff. um, I don't know what talk to deputy means. But okay, so are you American? So let's look at this. Are you American? So R is not stressed. U is not stressed. American is stressed, and it's stressed on the second syllable, American. So the way that you typed it is actually inverted from the stress. It should be lower R, lower U, and then capital ME in American. But anyway, whatever. American. Um, so you're asking about the reduction. Is it more informal? Is it less polite sounding? So if I say like here we have like American, American. That can sound informal. You can always reduce to ya. And there are some cases where it might still sound informal, but it's a super common thing. And actually, I have a trick for you guys that I haven't mentioned yet. Something I haven't, because I'm going to make a video on it. I don't think I've mentioned this. I discovered that um, the sound, like in book, and let me actually look at this here. I have this note here because I want to make sure I say this right. Don't confuse myself. Where is it? I have so many videos I need to make, guys. This is ridiculous. Like, I'll even show you this here. Like, this isn't, some of this is notes. I know you can't see that perfectly, but this is my document for the pronunciation course remaining. And then I have like, some of these are notes, as I said, this is for the linking lesson, and we have like other lesson ideas. This is notes for the lesson I'm making now. And then we have these other notes and things that I want to make videos on. And then these are just like bigger lessons. These are some other things I want to talk about. And then here we have all the extra practice and minimal pair lessons that I still need to make. So there's a lot. Little sneak peek there. But where I know I wrote this down. Where was it? Anyway, I'm pretty sure that I remember this correctly. So the as in book, because I know that apparently some teachers, I was really confused when somebody mentioned this because I was like, what? But I've had students tell me that I guess some teachers tell you that, for example, like you, it uses like the short oo, and you'll say like like when reducing or speaking quickly. And at first I was like, that doesn't make any sense. We don't use in you. We can reduce it to a schwa sound. But one thing that I realized is actually for sounds that are supposed to use oo in the fully enunciated way, if they can reduce, like the word you, see, or even two, this also works for two, you actually don't have to reduce it all the way to a schwa, to you can reduce it to and can act as sort of a bridge, like a halfway reduction between oo and this is another reason why I don't like calling the short oo, or I think that's what they call it. I don't even know. because it's not. It has nothing to do with the oo sound. It's It's a completely separate sound. But anyway, more on that later. So if you reduce the R and the U, it can sound informal. Reducing U to Y or even Y, if you're speaking quickly, you don't want to enunciate it that way. It's, definitely not. Then that's probably gonna sound fine. In this case, it's not gonna sound too informal. If you keep the R, right? So like, are you American? Are you American? Are you? Yeah, yeah. Are you American? It sounds okay. It doesn't really sound too informal. It sounds more or less standard, but it doesn't sound super polite, right? If you say like, "Are you American?" and you sort of don't reduce anything there, that would be like sort of the safest, most polite way of saying it. So yes, sometimes you do have to be a little bit careful with some reductions because they can possibly sound more informal. Um, but that's kind of a hard thing because reductions are so common. And like if I say, "Do you like it?" I say, "Do you? Do you? Do you like it? Do you like it?" That doesn't sound informal at all. But then in this case with R and U, if you reduce R to and U to ya, are you American? It does sound informal. Why? I don't know, but it does. So it's kind of a tricky thing. It's a good question. And I wouldn't stress R because R isn't stressed here, right? If you stress it, it would be, "Are you American?" And that sounds like you're suspicious. Like maybe they say they're American, but you don't really believe them. You say like, "Are you American? Like, are you really American? I don't believe you," right? And so that can actually sound possibly like an attack, which can sound obviously not very polite, right? Like you're accusing them or judging them. So don't stress R, right? It's just R. Okay. Are you American? Are you American? Could the schwa sound vary to ah in mop? Okay, yeah, so on mop, according to the context. Off the top of my head, I would say no. That would be very dangerous to do. Is that a cat or a cord? That's a cord. So something brushed my leg. It was a cord. I thought it was a cat. Like the pronunciation of the auxiliary verb have. Okay. So I think we have a bit of either a misunderstanding or a mix-up in maybe what other people have taught you. Okay. So number one, have does not use ah. It doesn't even use the unmerged ah sound. It uses ah, like cat. Okay, have is ah. So that's a completely different sound. That doesn't even fit here. Number two, the sound in mop and the sound in lot. I don't know how some people speak if they don't have the cot merger like I do, but the way I speak using the cot merger, mop and lot use the exact same sound. Okay. Um, so I'm really not sure what the question is here because you're also going to ask me like, could the schwa sound vary to another sound like because have doesn't use a schwa, so I'm really not sure what the question is. Like, there's a lot of pieces here that are just kind of confusing me. So if you can maybe re-explain that or state that differently, kind of. I'm not really sure what to say about that. Are the following sentences equal, written with a letter E, not I, equal in meaning and correct? That's the same woman that we saw yesterday. That's the very woman that we saw yesterday. Okay, good question. Yeah, so very can mean, this is a special use of very, which is it's not uncommon, but it's not as common as the normal use of very, meaning like a lot. Um, this use of very means like the exact same, right, or the exact one, like the specific one. So yes, these two sentences are equal in meaning, and they are both correct. Yes. If you use very, because it's a less common use of very, um, it's kind of like a slightly fancier use of the word, and so it can sound a little bit more sophisticated, and I don't want to say formal necessary, but it can sound kind of fancy if you use very like that. In everyday speech, we don't tend to use very that way, but you could, and there's nothing wrong with it. Um, it just makes it sound a little bit more fancy in a way. Okay, Finn, I consider my pronunciation to be really good, right? People are always surprised to hear that I'm not American, but I feel like I'm always thinking about it and like really think about what sounds to make. Like I'm always conscious about it. I'm afraid I'll be inconsistent if I'm not thinking about it. Okay. Well, if people are surprised to hear that you're not American, congratulations. Good job. You're living the dream. Living the dream. Um, that's fantastic. But so you're saying that you feel like you're always thinking about it. You're not sure. You always have to think about what sounds to make. Afraid that you'll be inconsistent if you're not thinking about it. One thing that I can tell you is that if you continue long enough performing the same, it's gonna become just natural muscle memory, and you're not gonna have to worry about it at some point. What point is that? I don't know. That depends on you and how good of a muscle memory you have built up for all these sounds and how to speak. It sounds to me like if you're fooling Americans, um, like you probably already have most if not all of the muscle memory really built. And because you probably put so much work into it, that's part of the reason why you're so conscious of it. Um, what I would recommend is you can do an experiment, right? Where you can say spend a month, maybe 2 weeks if you want, just not really paying attention to it. Just speak. Speak, right? Maybe randomly occasionally record yourself. Like if you're having a conversation with somebody, you just, turn the recorder on. You're not trying to like, speak in a fake way to the recorder. Just, catch snippets of yourself talking here and there throughout that period of time. Would be ideal. Um, you don't have to do that, but that could be useful. And then at the end of that time that you have intentionally tried to not pay attention, you're just speaking, ask people again, like, hey, do I still sound the same? Or see if people are less surprised to hear that you're not American. If so, then that means that there's some things that haven't completely solidified, and you can, in that short period of time, it's not going to cause any damage. You can go back to what you've been doing. You can maybe that's why recording yourself could be useful because you can identify some of the things that started to slip and you can reinforce them because most of what you have is probably already really solidly enforced, but there could be some random pieces that maybe aren't quite there yet if you don't pay attention to them. So I mean, yeah, it's a niche problem. It's a good problem to have, I would say. But I understand your fear because you put in all that work. You're at such a good level, and then it's like, oh, what if I lose it? Right? Just relax. Okay. Test it, see what happens. You can always come back and touch things up and try to cement things further. But I think you're probably at a good place. I would assume because people who get to that point they've already solidified a lot of things to be able to perform at that level. So I wouldn't worry about it. In the word octopus, what vowel sound do you use for the last syllable? A schwa, a high schwa. And what is the correct plural of the word? Octopi or octopuses? Good question. So the last sound, octopus, puss, push, puss. It's a high schwa, not a schwa. If it were a schwa, it would be octopus, pus, which would be the word pus, like from a sore, it gets infected. Um, so it's going to be just like push, right? Push uses the same sound, but except instead of an sh, it's just an s. Puss, octopus. Then And for people who are new here and don't know what I mean by high schwa, check out my lesson on high schwa. It's not actually a schwa, it's just what I call it. It's the like in book or push, as I just said. And what is the correct plural of the word? I believe it's octopi. Um, this is a thing that a lot of natives aren't clear about, including myself. Because like personally, I just don't care. I really don't. Um, let's see what the dictionary says. This is one of the things that the dictionary is useful for. How do you pronounce the plural of words? Let's see. So it should tell me here. Octopus. I typed in dictionary because I was talking about the dictionary. Stupid me. Okay, so it says the plural is octopuses or octopi. It lists both of them. So that would tell me, because I'm pretty sure octopi is what it's supposed to be, but a lot of people, because plurals in English usually end with an S sound, sometimes, we'll add an extra syllable like the right, octopuses, right, we had the I there and it might be pronounced as a Z, that doesn't matter. But we tend to add this sort of extra S to make things plural. And so a lot of people want to do that, right? Even if it's not correct. And so in the dictionary, it lists both of them. And that's probably because most people don't say it correctly. And it's so common to say it wrong that it doesn't matter. But yeah, it's kind of like also like with cactus, right? I'm pretty sure that, see, I actually get confused because is it, because I think cactus is plural and cacti is singular. I think maybe it's the other way around. See, I don't even know. I don't even know. It'd be weird if octopus works differently. Cactus. Cactuses, cactus, cacti. Okay, whatever. It says cacti is the plural. Um, but it also lists cactuses and cactus, so as a singular and plural. So I don't know. And that makes sense because when I say cactus, like there's a lot of cactus here without adding an S or changing it to I. That's another way to do cactus. If you say there's a lot of octopus here, that sounds like octopus as food, not like living octopi. Whatever. Doesn't matter. Don't care. Don't worry about it. um, I have a couple of words related to food that I like to hear you say. Avocado. That's how I say avocado. No, avocado. So a the it's a schwa there. That o is a schwa. Ava. Um, if we're kind of playing with it a little bit, we could say avo. It's not like the normal way to say it, but you will sometimes hear people say like avocado, like, but they're intentionally breaking it. So ava and then cado. So it's again, and then o, avocado. Um, avocado. Some people might say avocado, but yeah, I know that there's actually a couple ways to pronounce this based on like regional differences and stuff, but I say avocado, not avocado or anything. Avocado, um, avocado. Yeah, I think some people maybe say it that way. Anyway, whatever. Um, Fusilli. I actually have no idea how to pronounce this word because I've never heard it pronounced. I've seen it written before, but I would pronounce it like Fusilli or Fusilli, maybe with a Y sound. Fusilli. So I don't really know that one. Cumin, also cumin. I don't know if those are actually two different things, but if I see that word, I want to say it both ways. And then culinary. So this again, you can go from k into the half L, culinary. The I can be a schwa or an I, it doesn't matter, or culinary. And then of course we have the air at the end, the R colored third vowel. So there you go. The phrase, I don't go through the product very quickly. I understand that the product she uses lasts S there, lasts a long time. She doesn't finish it so quickly. Could you explain the phrasal verb go through? This is actually really funny because I was answering not really a similar question, but a question with through the other day. Because I don't think I could use it in other cases with the same meaning. Finish something for me sounds weird to use. I just go through my shower. I just finished my shower. Okay. So I think you have a very slight misunderstanding of go through. When we use it in the context of like a product, like your question here, obviously we are saying that she doesn't finish it or reach like the end of the product for a while, right? So that is implied, obviously. But it's not actually about the finishing, it's about how quickly you use it, right? Um, so if you say, I just go through my shower, um, in that particular sentence, if you say it that way, it kind of sounds like you just take a shower. Like it's very routine, right? Like you go through a series of steps, and it doesn't really sound like anything special. But if you say like, let's see, I'm trying to think here. Don't go through the product very quickly. Depending on the context. So if you say like, okay, so my alarm didn't go off, so I had to jump up, go through my shower, and get dressed, right? It means basically the same thing. Like you started the shower, you did the shower, you ended the shower, but it's this process of going through the shower, right? Like you start, you're in it, you're done. It's the same thing with I don't go through the product very quickly. You start using the product, there's the time where you're using the product and it's getting less and less and less and less and less, right? And then when it's gone, there's no more product. It's about that process of using it. It's not so much actually about the end point. Um, but of course, that's implied. Um, so I think you're right that there is a little bit of a difference here between I don't go through the product very quickly and I just go through my shower. Um, you could say I don't go through my shower very quickly, right? We'd probably say like I don't I don't take a shower very quickly. um, because we like to use take with shower very commonly, but you could use go through. But yeah, it wouldn't mean I just finished my shower. That's correct. That's not a good interpretation of that sentence. So yeah, and your exact question. So I understand the product should last a long time. Could you explain the phrasal verb go through? Yeah, so kind of. I guess I was kind of pointing at that. Go through. Remember, many phrasal verbs have multiple meanings. And the context can be very, very important. So all go through really means itself is right. There's the go part. So there's some sort of process. You're traveling, right? You're not actually traveling if it's a product. It's like the life of the product. So if you have like a thing of paper towels or aluminum foil or something, when you buy it, it's full, and then eventually it's gone, and you have to buy more. So you're sort of traveling through the life of that product as you use more and more of it. The through is, like I just said, travel through, right? So literally through is like through a tunnel. A train goes through a tunnel. Here we're talking about like going through a period of time where the product exists, or it's still good, right? It's still there. So it's more abstract use of through, but that's why, again, as I said, it can apply to shower, but it doesn't have that implied meaning of finish like the context of using a product does. That is implied in that case. So yeah, I hope that's clearer. It might not be. You can ask me to elaborate if you have follow-up questions or whatever, but hopefully that helps. How do Americans pronounce pate like that? Pate. And does the ordinary person even use it in speech, or is there some more common synonyms Americans are more familiar with, like paste? Oh, I see. Yeah. I wouldn't say it's used in like common everyday speech, but in the realm of cooking and recipes, um, it is used, not in like a fancy way or anything. It's just usually like it's listed as an ingredient, like pate or whatever. Like I occasionally see that word, but I only ever see it in the context of cooking, like obviously. So yeah, like we would probably use something like paste in everyday speech, and even in cooking, we commonly use paste, like tomato paste. So yeah, it exists. Yes, no G. Yes, the opposite. Oh, see, now I lost track. um, okay, I'll have to follow that up. The opposite of what? Unless I already answered that. But yeah, so yeah, as I said, English, you don't have to actually say the good there. English, English. That's how it should be pronounced. Reducing, are you when talking to a quotation marks, right? Reducing, are you, quotation marks, or something to mark it. Reducing, are you when talking to a very important personality is impolite. When you say a very important personality, that makes me think of like a celebrity, like Tom Cruise. um, if you reduce both of them, it can. Yes, it definitely can. If you just reduce one of them, then probably not. Um, how could you describe the difference between strange, odd, and weird? This is a high level question, C1, C2 level question. Keep in mind, remember that English has, look, I have Mexican Pepsi. Yes, it's actually from Mexico. We call it Mexican Pepsi because it has real sugar in it. Go figure. I know that was so random, but anyway, things. What was I saying? Oh, English has a lot of words, like a lot of words, like at least 500,000 words. Some people say a million words. We have a lot of words. Um, and because we have a lot of words, we have many, many, many synonyms, and this creates many different shades of meaning. Um, so where they're synonyms, they mean the same thing or almost the same thing, but they'll feel different, right? And sometimes they don't really feel different at all. They're just completely interchangeable, and there's not really any difference between them. Um, Sometimes one will sort of sound fancier, and one won't. So there's all kinds of little different ways that two synonyms might have a difference or might not have a difference. But in this case, strange, odd, weird. Um, these certainly can mean the same thing and can be synonyms. I don't, off the top of my head, I want to say they're just basically synonyms, but there's probably some uses of some of those words where they're not necessarily interchangeable. Because if I see something that is unusual, right, I might say, "Oh, that's strange," or "Oh, that's odd," or "Oh, that's weird," and it doesn't make a difference. Like, blah, doesn't matter. Um, Even if you say like, "Oh, he's a strange person," or "He's an odd person," "He's a weird person," doesn't really matter. Like they're all basically the same. Uh, Although strange can have a little bit of a different feeling when talking about people, but it's very, very close. It's hard for me to even figure out and like explain what that difference is. So it's so small. But anyways, off the top of my head, I can't think of cases where they would be different. Um, so these would more or less be perfect synonyms, um, where you kind of just pick one. Um, what I will say here, let's see, strange, strange, odd, weird. Yeah, I'm trying to feel a difference, and I don't really like. There's a very subtle difference of feeling between them, but not really. So that's basically it. If you can give me some example phrases, um, so that they're actually in context, then it'll be easier to pinpoint if there's any differences or if there's any differences of feeling based on the particular context, because the context can be important. But in a very general sense, I would say they're like exactly the same. There's not really any difference. I will say in terms of usage, not everybody will use all of those. Like I tend to use weird, right? If something's like really unusual, I'll say, oh, that's weird. Um, Maybe I'll use strange sometimes, like that's really strange. But I don't tend to use odd. Of course, odd does have a completely different meaning. Like there's an even number 2 and there's an odd number 3, right? It's a different meaning of odd. Um, it's under the surface, it is connected, and there's a reason why it has those two meanings. But I don't tend to use odd to mean weird or strange. It's just the way that I speak. I don't tend to use it. Um, so there's also that where some people might prefer to use one or maybe two of them compared to the other ones, and that might be regional. I'm not sure, but they're basically the same. Okay, Finn. What time is it? 12:30. We're at an hour. It's already been an hour. Wow, feels like 20 minutes maybe. How do you reduce the word very in fast speech? Good question. I'm not sure. Like there's a hint of an E sound there, but it kind of fades. I don't really know. Okay. Well, there's no E sound in very. To even in the full pronunciation of the word, it's the sound, not the E sound. You would put EE, and so I'm going to interpret that as E, like C. So it's not supposed to be very. um, so how do you reduce it? It's very good. Very good. Very good. Okay, so yeah, there is a way that we can, I guess I would call it like a semi-reduction, but we don't have to split hairs there. We'll just say it's a reduction. There's kind of a small reduction there where if I clearly enunciate the word very, right? Very, it's very good. Okay. And we hear that air, our colored third vowel, air, air. Uh, if I'm speaking a bit faster or more lazily, um, you don't actually have to fully enunciate the part. And this is something that I noticed that can happen sometimes with the R colored, some of the R colored vowels is instead of starting all the way up in and then pulling to and blending to make air, you can actually start at a point that is already like part way to the R part. And so we don't hear the full part of it because the is the most important part. But you can't just like start from wherever you want. It's just sort of like it's like already starting that transition from to instead of starting in the and so like very, 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 so I'm already halfway to the R, and then I just pull all the way into it. Very, 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 instead of very, very, very. So you can kind of, I guess you can cut the start of it short and not really do a full and just kind of again don't start just in the because then that's very, right? If it's straight very, that's not right. So you need to be at least part way into the but you don't have to actually start fully in the part. It's a good question. I guess that would fit under cutting the diphthong because the R colored vowels and the L colored vowels are technically diphthongs. So that would be a form of cutting the diphthong, just like I can sort of reduce to just like like I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it. Does the schwa could vary to? Okay, so this is the rewording of that. Maybe like can have as an auxiliary verb. Okay, so have even as an auxiliary verb. It's supposed to be it can maybe reduce to a schwa possibly, but so I guess your question is, see, because that doesn't make any sense why you're asking about lot, because this would make me, my interpretation of this is that maybe you were taught that have has the sound so it's like have or something, which sounds very British to me. But if it's an auxiliary verb, it's supposed to be a schwa or something like that. Like I don't know. But I guess to answer this question, I can't say 100% for sure about going between the schwa and the ah sound, which remember, so you're talking about the ah central vowel, so that would be ah, right? And I don't speak that way. The way that I speak and teach, you can do that if you want, like for whatever words use that sound, but I use the merger. So ah and ah becomes ah. It's just one sound. So it's actually not a central vowel, it's a back vowel now, in the way that I speak, which is so much easier. Um, and it still sounds neutral and natural. But between ah and this is a common problem for many English learners. In fact, I'm working with a student right now to try to separate out those two sounds. And maybe there are some words that use ah that in fast speech, or the unmerged ah, that in fast speech um, could maybe reduce to a schwa if it's not a stressed syllable. There might be some cases like that in fast speech or like lazy speech. But as a general rule, I would probably say that you want to keep the schwa, and ah, or the unmerged ah, separate. Okay, you want to keep them completely separate because it's a big problem mixing them for English learners, and you get one of the biggest problems with understanding English learners is they don't have any separation between and ah, and so they say everything like ah, right? So they'll say lat, hot. They'll say instead of saw, they'll say sa. Instead of like say one, they'll say wan, and it all just becomes like one sound. And it's a huge problem. You need to separate those out completely. So I don't know if there's still a little bit of like maybe you were taught wrong, or maybe you have a misunderstanding of what's going on with those sounds. But the short answer here to try to answer the question would be keep schwa and ah separate. Maybe it exists where you can reduce to the schwa, but I would just generally keep them separate. I've noticed that the a in have can reduce to a schwa even when it's the main verb. Can it? Could you talk a little bit about it? Let's see. Like I have a car. 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 Okay, yeah. Maybe this is kind of connected to Wendell's question, but again, Wendell's sort of asking about the ah sound, and it's not the ah sound, it's ah, like a cat. So I guess it can reduce to a schwa. I've never noticed that consciously. Playing around with it, I guess it makes sense. So one thing to note here in American English, so of course there's have has many different uses, right? There's main verb like I have a car. There's the special have to, meaning must, like I have to go. There's present perfect or whatever perfect tense, like I have done it already. And um, I mention all this because don't worry, this is directly relevant to what you're asking. In American English, if have is a main verb, like I have a car, it's going to be it can't be contracted. Okay, we do have some set phrases. British English contracts have like pretty much all the time, like they don't care. But in American English, there are some set phrases we have where have as a main verb can be contracted. But most of the time, have as a main verb will not contract. Okay, even with have to, like have or have to, like I have a car, I have to go. We don't contract that. Okay, in like 95% of cases. But the present perfect, like I have done it, this will almost always contract. It doesn't have to, but it's super common to contract it in speech and in writing. So I've done it, right? That's going to be the most common thing to do for the perfect tenses. If it's past, it would be I had done it, right? Now, I think that if you're speaking, if you're using have, even as a main verb, so how am I trying to say this? Okay. Let's first look at the contraction, the perfect tense, right? So when we say I've, it just goes straight from I to the, right? There's no schwa, there's nothing in between. It's I've. Um, if we don't contract have, or if we're using have as a main verb or in have to, so there's the two words, right? I have or you have, whatever. Number one, we can drop the H, right? And we commonly will. So if I say like I have a car, we drop the H, and it'll sound kind of like I have with a small y, not I have, right? Like I have, I have, I have. And this can sound extremely similar to the contracted form I've, right? I've, I have, I've, I have, I have, especially in faster speech. So it can sound kind of close. Now, after we drop that H, if you're being lazy or if you're speaking faster, it does sound okay to me to reduce the a to as long as it's an actual true, like really short, quiet schwa, not like an sound, but an actual like really, really like uh, right? Um, if you're enunciating, if you say like I have a car or I have a car, that's people are gonna be like, you what a car? Like you hug a car? Like what does that mean? You love a car? We're missing a sound somewhere. Um, so again, it has to be in faster speech. It has to be super, super short and reduced. And I guess it's something that can happen. Yes, it's not something that has to happen. You can completely ignore it. Because I didn't even consciously realize that that was possible. But in faster, lazier speech, that is something that can happen. The faster and lazier we go in English, the more things start to break from what is like the standard normal thing. There's sort of like an upper limit where things start breaking down and all kinds of weird things happen that shouldn't happen, like a schwa and have. But I think it's partially because like have in the perfect tenses can be contracted, and then we can drop the H, and then if we have fast speech, it's kind of like all these factors kind of come together to create the possibility of sort of just making a schwa there instead of the a sound. So it's a weird case. It's a really weird case. But we do know that because have is a main verb, and in have to, it's supposed to be stressed, right? And usually, I'm not going to say never, usually, you're not supposed to have reductions in stressed syllables or stressed words, right? Because it's a reduction, right? Part of the way that it works in the language is to make things shorter and quieter so that we have that contrast in the rhythm of the language. But we do know, for example, the word get, which is one of the single most common words in the language, the fully enunciated way to pronounce the word is with the third vowel, get. However, this is more often than not pronounced like this with the second vowel, get. So even though it's stressed, it's almost always reduced. And that's probably partially because it's a super, super, super common word that we use all the time. Now, of course, B doesn't reduce to bi or ba or something like that necessarily. And that's like the single most common word. But there are many, many common words that, well, I don't want to say many, many, but the more common a word is, it makes more sense that it would possibly have a reduction. Not that it's going to, but because it's a common word. So if we tend to use it a lot, even if it's stressed, maybe it might have some way to possibly reduce it. Get is one example of that. Have doesn't usually reduce to have. So it's a special case. So be careful with it. Again, I would just ignore it. It's just a weird thing that can happen. Does the irregular plural mice apply to computer mouse as well, or is it only reversed? Reversed. I can't read. Is it only reserved for the rodent, or is this just like the cactus situation? um, that's a good question. It's not. It's very, very rare that we have to refer to more than one of these, because like you only need one. I'm pretty sure your computer can only like operate one at a time. Um, so maybe if you worked at a hardware store, like a computer hardware store or something. We just got a shipment of mice. We just got a shipment of mouses. I'm pretty sure for computers, these things, the plural would be mouses. I'm pretty sure. But again, I'm not even sure about the cactus or cacti situation. So who knows? Maybe it's supposed to be mice, but I'm pretty sure, I feel pretty confident that this is supposed to be mouses if it's plural. And then for the animal, the plural is mice. But it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. I would just say pick one. Just use whatever in these cases because this even natives, like most natives, are just like, I don't know, I'm just going to use one. um, Dubir Sarah, hello. Hello again. Yes, I got your comment at the beginning. I don't know if you were here. So I said hello. Maybe you left and came back. I don't know. But yes, hello again. Now, where was I? Oh. Do you pronounce the B in obviously? Or it's softer than usual, maybe? And there says, thank you, I got it perfect. Okay, so yeah, this is another one that's a little bit tricky because the B and the V, right? B is a lip sound, V is a lip sound. And so obviously they're going to be very, very close together. Now, I just said obviously. I didn't use a B there. Can you use a B? Can you say obviously? Yes, you can. Now you don't want to push out like obviously. That's not right. Okay, so you want to sort of gently release that B. It would be it's at the end of a syllable, right? So it would be it's not stopped. We're not stopping here like obviously. But you can kind of hold it there for a second, do this sort of like a held stop. Most likely, we're just going to do like a very, very weak B, like very unaspirated, small, tiny B. That's it. And you're going to hear it even less because that V after it immediately starts, right? So as I start releasing this bottom lip immediately, like as it detaches, it'll also start pulling in to start touching that lip. It happens at the same time. And so that B needs to be very, very weak, but it's actually not required. You can completely drop the B in this word and say obviously. Now, the more you get the lips closed, you don't have to completely close them. But the more you get the lips closed, the more there's going to be an illusion of the B. Obviously. Or you could just say obviously. I can even have it all obviously. It still sounds perfectly fine. So drop the B is what I would recommend, but as long as it's not like a then you're fine. I heard a YouTuber say Christianity like Christianity. That sounds like a talk show host or something. Christianity. 4 syllables, and it surprised me. Is this pronunciation common? Christianity. Oh, tough question. I want to say no. It's not necessarily common, but what's probably actually happening here. So it's supposed to be like right Christianity. So it's Ian, Chian, not Chan, right? So there's the ch and the an, but there's supposed to be like an e and a little y that connects to the a. In really fast speech, it's very, very easy to drop that the e and that little y sound and just, I wouldn't say completely drop it, or possibly completely drop it. So I could say, if I clearly enunciate Christianity, right? Christianity, or Christianity, Christian, Christianity. It almost starts sounding like Chan, but there's still that little bit in there. And if I speak really fast and lazily, Christianity. And I'm still technically keeping that E in there, but it's so small now that it might as well not be there. And so I think because of that, especially if this guy was speaking very fast, it might be that you just didn't hear the little tiny E part, or he might have just completely dropped it and sort of collapsed that middle syllable into, or the middle 2 syllables into 1 syllable. So that can happen. It's something that can happen, I would say. But it's not, I don't think it's supposed to be that way. And I don't think most people would like enunciate it. Like they wouldn't say Christianity. Like that sounds weird. So it's probably a speed thing. Oh, John, I just see a super chat. I don't know if there's a lag because I just now got this, like it just popped up for me, but I see there's a little, the timer at the top is like over halfway gone, so I apologize. Like I just got this. Um, so yeah, I have to answer this here. When saying sentences like, which I know we have your question you want to ask about the S and SH, so we're going to talk about that too. But when saying sentences like, there's growing nervousness, okay, I sometimes find myself making Shua. Yeah, this SCHWA. That's how we pronounce it. I know it sounds like kind of like Shua, but it's not Shua. It's Shwa. Anyway, it doesn't matter. That's not the question. I sometimes find myself making the schwa after S, also with words that end in VS. Okay, so after the apostrophe S. Okay, so there's growing. So you would say it kind of like there's a growing. You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. And the reason why is because if you do that, it's going to sound like you're saying this. Yeah, sorry, not 3. I can't type, guys. I can't do it. There we go. Yeah, there's a growing. If you add a schwa there, it's going to sound like the word a is there because the word a is usually just reduced to a. And I will say in very informal speech, or if we're trying to sort of like mimic the stereotypical uneducated Southerner, it's very common to add an a where it shouldn't go, and it's not supposed to be a as in like the article, but it's like I don't know. I don't know. Say you see some horses coming, and you say they're a coming, right? Sounds like something maybe somebody in the South would say they're a coming, even though there's not supposed to be an there. So that's a special case. Ignore that. That's not part of normal speech. So you don't want to add random schwas because they could be very confusing. Now, in this particular sentence or phrase, I don't know the whole sentences, right? If you say there's growing nervousness, I guess that could be the whole sentences, or the whole sentence. Potentially, there could be a before growing. So you could say there's growing nervousness about the economy, right? You could say there's a growing nervousness about the economy. And they both actually work here. The A is not required. But if you add the little schwa, it's going to sound like you're adding the word a. And if you don't mean to add the word a, you just want to say there's growing, then you don't want the schwa. Okay, so you need to be able to control flowing from sound to sound without adding any extra sounds between. So you want to go from z to g, zg, zg, zg. So if you're letting go of z, you're going to hit schwa, and then you do g, zg, zg. That's not what you want. You need to go z, and then without letting this drop down, you're going to bring the back up while mostly holding this position to close. Z, z, z. Okay, that's what you need to do. They say also with words that end with V and S, VS. So you mean like there's a V and an S at the end of the word, or you're going from V to S between words, or words that end in V and words that end in S? I'm not really sure exactly what that part is. But regardless, it's the same thing. You have to be able to transition between sounds correctly without any extra fillers in between. Good. Oh, my throat is so dry. It's so hot here, guys. Which, of course, I'm complaining. It's only probably like 80 degrees Fahrenheit, which is like what? Not maybe 30 Celsius, if that. But to me, that's hot because I don't like the heat. I like the cold. Oh, God. My leg is not in a good position. Okay. Does the irregular plural? Oh, we already did that. Where was I? Okay. Daniela. Welcome to the chat here. Sorry, it took me a second to get here to your question. You'd said in a video of yours that you naturally pronounce the word think with the A, with the diphthong A. Yes, I cannot notice though. Can you pronounce it a few times here? Yes, I can. First, I want to note a little grammar, subtle grammar point. So you wrote here, you'd said, meaning like you had said. Very good contracting. Yes, we like to contract. Fantastic job. Bonus points for that. However, I've touched on this before, and when I start talking more about grammar after I finish talking about pronunciation in the future, I'm going to make some lessons on this. In American English, the compared to say British English, the present perfect isn't used as much. We still use it a lot, but if the difference in meaning in the particular context between the present perfect and simple past, if the difference is so small, then Americans prefer to just use the simple past most of the time. We will still sometimes use the present perfect, but we tend to often replace the present perfect with the simple past. For the past perfect here, you had said, we almost always replace the past perfect with the simple past. Almost always. Now, you don't have to. Your use of it here is fine. That's very good. Good job. But it almost sounds a little bit just slightly unnatural, almost. Like it's not wrong, but it almost sounds slightly unnatural because like how I would do this is you said in a video of yours. Like that's by far the most common thing that an American would say in this case. We wouldn't say you'd, we'd say you said. Um, the only time we tend to use the past perfect, because usually, right, in the past perfect is used to clarify which of two actions in the past happened first. And so the context usually makes that clear. If I say, I cooked dinner before you arrived, right? It should be I had cooked dinner before you arrived, but it's very clear which happened first. So we're much more likely to just say I cooked instead of I had cooked. Um, so little tip there. Not the biggest point in the world, but yeah, now you know. Anyway, if you want to ignore that and just do what you've been doing, that's fine. You're using it correctly, so that's good. Things. So yes, think. Now it's very uncomfortable for me, but I can do it with the ah vowel like some other people do. So I can compare these here. So first I'll say it with a few times. I'll say it with a few times, and then I'll say them side by side. So first a, think, 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 think. Okay, thank, thank, thank. It's probably not even 100% perfect. It's very weird for me. Okay. Think, thank, think, thank, think, thank. So they can sound very similar. And that is why, by the way, that is why using either pronunciation still sounds generally quite natural and neutral. This is one of the sounds that kind of stands out a little bit more, and we will kind of notice it. I don't know people who use thank if they notice when people use thank, but I do know for me, when I hear people use thank, it's always like first, actually, I never notice it except for from British speakers. And on very rare occasion, I would hear an American do it. And so I just thought it was like more of a British thing. And it's like whenever I heard an American do it, I was like, why are you saying it that way? Like that's so weird. But some people say it that way in American English, and that's perfectly fine. But because they are quite similar, they're both within the realm of neutralness, right? It's one of the small differences that doesn't really add up to like a different dialect or a different like accent, like say like the Southern accent. So whichever one is easier for you, use it. It doesn't matter. So okay, Finn. I mean the Y sound at the end of very. Oh, that would make sense. um, yeah, stupid me. Okay, where was that questioner? So yeah, very. No, that's Wendell. Where'd it go? Very, 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 very. I wonder if I can search this with a Control F. Probably not. Let's see. Control F. Okay. Hey, it works. Yay for computer hacks. Very, 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 very. Okay, how do you reduce the word very in fast speech? Ah, interesting. Very good. Very good. Basically, the same explanation as I had for the air. um, the faster the speech, the more condensed everything becomes. In the word very, the stress is on the first syllable, right? Very, very. And so um, as we speak more slowly and more enunciated, the stress syllables without any special emphasis, we don't have to care about that. Obviously, that would just make it even louder and longer, but just in the normal flow of speech, the closer we are to clearly enunciating and speaking more slowly, the stress syllables are going to be loud and long relative to the unstressed syllables, which are going to be short and quiet. That's generally true. As we speed up and we get into faster speech, that still happens, but because now we're speaking faster, we have less time to pronounce each sound and each syllable. The stressed syllables that are louder and longer, they will still be relatively louder and longer than the unstressed syllables, but they'll get smaller. They'll get shorter and quieter because of the speed. And then the unstressed syllables will get even more shorter and quieter because of the speed. And so there's always this relative louder, longer, shorter, quieter between stressed and unstressed. But as you increase the speed, everything gets shorter and quieter, right? It's just that we keep that relative difference between them. And so, how do you say the E sound at the end of very when in fast speech? You just do a really, really short, fast E. That's it. It's just like an unstressed E. That's all it is. So I like it very much. Very, 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 very. In fact, you don't even have to go all the way up into E. You can kind of do. I guess it would kind of be closer to like a Y or even a small Y sound, like instead of E. Very, very. And so it doesn't matter. As long as you start moving towards the E sound and then move right back out, it's going to sound fine. Again, this is a feature of fast speech. Fast speech is kind of its own little world in a way, in some aspects. But normal speed speech, between like enunciated, normal, and fast, normal speech matches faster speech more than the clearly enunciated. But anyway, okay. Also from Daniela, in the phrase, as I've said before, do you drop the V reduction? So I say like if we reduce, do we drop the V? Okay, so and hello, yes, hello. um, this I'm glad you mentioned this. As I was talking about earlier with like the I'd, right? The I had. What did you say? Like you had said in a video. Um, this is a good case. Again, the context might make a bit of a difference of if we want to keep the have there, but um, I can't think of a case off the top of my head where we would have to. So this is a good example where you could use as I've said before with a V, but we're actually very likely, and we will do it that way sometimes. There's nothing wrong with it. You're grammatically correct. This is a good case where we would actually probably just drop the have part altogether and say, as I said before. That's not a reduction. Okay, so if you've heard people do that and you're kind of confused and you're like, okay, I know the grammar is supposed to be I have said, but I'm not hearing the V. Is this a pronunciation thing where they're dropping the V? No, because that wouldn't work. Then the have is completely gone. You can't just drop. We already dropped the ha part. If you drop the v part, there's nothing left. So if you're hearing something like that, it's not a pronunciation thing. It's the fact that Americans are very likely to just not use the present perfect in this case and use the simple past, as I said before. Yeah. So good question. But can we drop it? I would say no, because again, the have would be completely gone. Yeah. So is Medipack used in American English for the first aid kit-esque item. Nice use of esque, yes, very good. See, this is how we know David is such an advanced learner here. Or do you guys prefer medpack? They spelled medpack as well, or medikit. And how would you pronounce medipack? Like that, medipack. Medipack sounds like something from a video game to me, so definitely not that one. Medpack also sounds like maybe it's either from a video game or from the military. And I would, if I had a choice, I would spell it with the CK, not just the C at the end. That looks very, very weird. That looks like Pac-Man as a doctor. Get it? Med pack. Ha 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 ha. I'm so funny. Or I should say waka waka waka. I'd kill me. So medikit also kind of sounds military-ish to me. So none of those. I'm sure there's some people who maybe use one or more of those somewhere in American English. It could be a dialect thing. Medipack. I mean, I would just call it a first aid kit. I mean, unless you're thinking of something, because you say first aid kit-esque, so it's like similar to a first aid kit. So maybe like if you're thinking of a specific thing that I'm not thinking of. So I don't know. But maybe medpack, maybe, I guess. I don't know. Oh, we're at 141 already. Okay, so sometimes it's still not clear. Which, by the way, John, I don't know if you mentioned it yet here, but if you want, go ahead and put your question that you had for me in the comments from like once and she, and I can pick it up in the flow. Otherwise, I might forget it, or we just won't end up getting to it. So we can talk a bit about that if you want. But sometimes it's still not entirely clear to me if I should use e, it, or for some words beginning with e, economy. Okay, good question. The answer is maybe not for all the words, but the answer is all of them. Many words that, and it doesn't have to be the first sound, like say, for example, believe, that's another example, starts with a B sound, but it has that E in that first syllable and it's unstressed. Many words that have E in the first syllable, that's not stressed. The fully enunciated way to pronounce it would be E, okay? But they will commonly reduce to and they can also commonly reduce to I. So it actually doesn't matter. Whichever one you use is fine as long as you don't break the stress pattern. So if you're more clearly enunciating, you might hear like economy, but you want to make sure you don't say economy because you're saying the E, right? So you'll more commonly hear economy or economy. Doesn't matter. Okay, all three options are perfectly fine. Economics. Now this is not E. Okay, so economics. I think there's primary stress on the E there. Economy, economics. Yeah, I would put primary or secondary. Did I say primary? I meant secondary. I would put secondary stress. The dictionary agrees with me. I know it's correct. If it doesn't, then it might not be. But secondary stress is something that I have a little bit of difficulty hearing because I always had problems hearing stress when I was younger. Like, well, consciously identifying stress. Like I could hear the language just fine. Yes, I am correct. There is oh yeah, that's right. Economics can be pronounced with E. That's right. That's another way to say it. You can say economics or economics. I say economics with but I have heard economics. So anyway, that doesn't matter. The point is that that first syllable, unlike economy, that first syllable is unstressed. In economics, the first syllable is stressed, but it's secondary stress, so it doesn't matter as much. You could still say, well, let's see, if I say economics, yeah, trying to reduce that first syllable to an E or to an I or an sounds strange to me. Probably because it has that secondary stress. So that one I wouldn't even count in this list. That's a weird one. Economist, so that's like economy. It works the same. You can reduce it to both of them. Economical or economical. So two ways to say that first syllable there, e or but economical. I wouldn't reduce it to it or So that one would work like economics. Um, ecological. You could use e or but ecological or ecological, reducing it, I wouldn't do that. Same thing with ecosystem. So two of these words, economy and economist, you can reduce that first syllable to it or and it's supposed to be e fully enunciated. Where in all the other four, it could be e or for the first syllable, and you don't reduce it to it or At least I wouldn't. It would sound very strange to me. But as I said, there's words like, say, believe, right, or repeat, where it's supposed to be be or right? Believe, I believe, or please repeat. And you can commonly reduce this to either it or believe, repeat, repeat. It doesn't matter. Wendell, last week you said have at the start of the sentence should be pronounced as at and cat, but is it a reduced Is that correct? Do I get you right? Well, I don't know what you mean by reduced because if it's it's still Maybe the lazy which isn't like a reduced it's just a lazier version of which anytime you have you can use the lazy so that doesn't really make much of a difference. But it doesn't matter if have is at the beginning of a sentence. It's always supposed to be Um, that's the sound in the word. Again, maybe there are some cases where it could reduce and whatever, but the way you're supposed to say the word fully enunciated is so I could say have, like, have you done it? Have you done it? Have, right? Now, if I use the lazy instead of saying have, I say have, ha. It's still an it's not Have you done it? Have you done it? Have you done it? And that's present perfect have, which means that it's not even stressed. If I say I have a car, I have a car. I have a car. I can drop the H, use the lazy sounds exactly the same. For I have. I assume have as an auxiliary verb would be I have done it, and as a normal verb it would be I have. Well, I wouldn't put it as I have. It's supposed to be I have. Maybe again in fast speech it could reduce to a schwa, whatever, but it's supposed to be if you say I've, where it just goes straight from I to V, then it sounds like I apostrophe VE. That's the only way that's going to be interpreted. So if you try to say, well, I guess, yeah, that wouldn't work here with what you're saying, but so it's not even like it's just present perfect, like I have done it would be pronounced I've. It's that the have is contracting to I apostrophe VE, and that's how we pronounce I've. It's the I from I and then the V from have. So basically, yes, what you're saying there is correct. So for example, when saying it's, he's, I have, sometimes schwa comes out. Is it something with my tongue position? Okay, so like going into the S or the V there. Yeah, so if you say like itus, he is, I have, I have. So now if you put it between I've and I have, and you try to like, or have, I don't even know how you would say that. Have. Maybe I guess you could kind of do that. That's okay, but have. Yeah, you don't want to do that. It should be it's, especially in the case of like TS, because there's no actual T there. That's an illusion. So if you release the T into a schwa and then do an S, you're not even saying it's at all. Like you're saying itus, itus. You're saying like this. Oops. You'd be saying this itus, itus without even flapping the D, which we would flap the D there. But it sounds like you're just enunciating the T and saying it us. Or he is, or if you keep the Z there, he is. Like that's not a word. People be like, what are you talking about? So yeah, you need to have you have to have good enough tongue control to be able to flow from sound to sound. In the case of TS, as I said, the T's not actually there. You're just going to push the S through the T. So if you're releasing and coming down into a schwa before you do the S, then you're doing it absolutely 100% completely wrong because there's no T there at all. You go into the T position, but you don't release the T. You just push the S through that position. And so your tongue shouldn't be coming down before the S at all. It should be slightly opening into the S. So if you have a schwa there, that's definitely a huge problem. You're doing something very, very wrong there. Going from E to Z, like in he's, you go ease, ease, ease. You don't is. You don't want to do that. Okay, it's just from sound to sound. I've, not I have. I have. Well, I guess it's not up here, but I have with the lip after there for the V. I have. Like, there's no reason to drop into the schwa. Just it's all just like one motion and the lip comes up. There's no schwa in it at all. So yeah, practice transitioning from sound to sound. I think I was sometimes dropping the tip of the tongue, probably. I don't know specifically what that's referring to. Probably the same thing I was just talking about. But I'm also curious, do you pronounce the first I in finance, financial, financially, and financier as I or and or do you place the primary stress? Okay, so obviously I say I because that's how I read all of those. Can we do finance? Okay, so finance, that's another way to say it. Finance or finance, both fine. Financial, financial, same thing. Financially, financially, same thing. You can also say fin, like financially. Financier. That one seems a little bit weird to me, but it sounds okay. I would really want to say fi in that one, but yeah, so it doesn't matter. You can use either way. But stress, right? Actually, the stress pattern will shift depending on which one you use. If you use I, it's going to be finance. If you use it's going to be finance. Same thing. It's exactly the same thing. It's just we're changing the stress pattern. It's a weird thing because usually we don't do that. We don't just like change the sound and the stress in the word and then both are fine. Like there's usually one answer for the stress, like the word stress. But this group is actually more flexible and you can actually switch it and then reduce that first syllable to if you put the stress on the second one. Financial, is a financial. That sounds a little bit weird, so financial. It's still going to be on the second one, I guess, in that one. But use a financial, just reduce it. Financially. The first syllable could have secondary stress. That's fine. But again, you can switch it probably because finance switches. And then financier. They both work. So that one would be just like finance. It can switch. So it's weird. They don't all work 100% the same, but yeah, it's a special group. When saying of a war, dark-haired, I sometimes find myself making R sound. Okay, well that sounds like you're doing the right thing then, because there are R's in there. So sometimes it sounds like over war. Oh, I see. Okay, extra R's. Dark. You're adding a D. Dark-haired, because there's already two R's in dark-haired. Like, you mean darker-haired? Maybe there's a typo. Darker-haired. God, my throat is so dry. Is it again something to do with my tongue position? There's something, I forget what it's called. It's this stupid thing that I've seen some teachers talking about, because I had a question about it from a student. Um, I forget what it's called, but it's like part of the New York accent and like some other accents where they'll add R's after vowels where they shouldn't. Some Southerners do that too. Um, and that's not standard speech. Like that's very dialectical. It actually sounds pretty annoying to a lot of um, speakers. It sounds really annoying to me. Um, so I would recommend that you don't do that. It should be ava, ava, the war, of the war. Um, be careful between the W and the R because those can kind of get mixed up a little bit. So you don't want to say like over war. Okay, control your tongue. Don't let it go into R. Of the war, right? It shouldn't start the R sound until after the W. And this in this case, it's an R colored O. War. Um, and then dark haired. I guess if you're saying darker haired or something, you're adding an extra R sound. So just don't add an extra R sound. you know. I don't know if it has anything to do with your tongue position specifically, but it definitely has something to do with how you're flowing between things. So it could be something with your tongue um, going into the wrong position or going into the right position too early. So, but whatever it is, just make sure that you're flowing from sound to sound properly. Well, that's better. Okay, we're at 2 hours now. We're going. We're gonna make it through. Let's see. I just wish I had my new computer. To piggyback off of the weird case of have pronounced with a schwa, I've also noticed that good use of piggyback, very nice, and a phrasal verb piggyback off. Yes, although I guess I wouldn't define that as a phrasal verb. It's just off goes with piggyback. Although you could also use piggyback on. Anyway, that's a tangent. To the question, pronounced with a schwa. I've also noticed that in fast speech, some consonants like g and k can be pronounced with much less movement of the tongue. So they end up morphing into sounds that don't technically exist in English. Okay, this is a good point. This is related in terms of speed, because as I said, maybe you can reduce have with a to a schwa with speed. Definitely shouldn't be that way normally. But this is a little bit of a different thing. It is related to the speed, technically, but it can also happen in normal speed speech. I've talked a bit about this before, and correct me if I'm not talking about the same thing you're talking about. But for example, in asks, I've talked about how we can use this sort of like light K sound, and so instead of going like right, we say asks, and it's nice and clear. You could do it that way if you enunciate. You can go to the S. You can move your tongue just very slightly towards the K sound without actually hitting it. And it'll create the illusion that there's a little bit of a K there, and then you just keep doing the S, right? So asks. So I'm not actually doing a K sound. I don't know. Obviously, that's a case where it's between two S's, and you might be thinking of cases where there aren't S's, but we're probably talking more or less about the same thing. So if you can give me some examples of that, I can take a closer look at that. But yes, that does exist. Also with the P and B, right? If I say lips, right? Lips. I don't even actually have to completely close the P. I can do sort of a lazy, like a half or a light P. Lips. Okay. Now, if it's like, say, a strong K at the start of a stress syllable, you can't do that. Or a strong P. If I say like pick, I can't do pick, because we need to hear that P, right? Or if I say like kick, right? Kick. That first K sound has to be heard. It can't be like kick. It doesn't work. Now, in the flow of fast speech, maybe if it's at the start and we're speaking really, really quickly, you can kind of get a little lazy with it, but we still want to hear that little puff of air. So it would probably get weird if you didn't do that. Oh my god, stupid chat. Stop moving. In the TV series The Handmaid's Tale, there's a fictional country called Gilead. The adjective form of the noun is Gileadian. Gileadian. I would say Gileadian. I really don't know. Like there's a numerous, probably at least 2 or 3 different ways that we could try to pronounce that. I would say Gileadian. But I've never heard it pronounced by any character. That's funny. I could actually be pronounced Galadian. Like in that case, I might change it to Galadian. But yeah, I don't know. I've never heard it pronounced, so I really don't know how it's pronounced. I can take a guess. But as I said before, even for us natives, if we haven't actually heard a word pronounced before, which is rare, usually most words that we encounter we've heard before, even if they're not particularly common words. But if there's words that are new that we've never actually heard someone say before, we can't just look at how the word is spelled and know how to pronounce it because of English spelling, even for us natives. We can make good guesses based on what we know of spelling patterns in our brain and stuff, but there's no like guarantee that we'll say it correctly. So I really have no idea. Can you give an estimate guess for how you think the adjective would be pronounced? Well, okay, there you go. So Galadian or Giladian, probably one of those two. Maybe even Gilladine, because the EA could just be E. Gilead, Gileadian, Gileadine. Yeah, I can't. I don't know. One of those. I really don't know. Any tips to say once she? Very good. We've got this in the chat here smoothly. So basically, how to link S and SH. Yes. So how do we do this? We do it very simply, very nicely. Now in this particular case, you do have an N before the S sound in once, and so that causes a little bit of a slightly more difficult thing, but it's the same as if there weren't an N before it. And I think that I mentioned this in passing, like very briefly in the lesson, the big linking lesson that I published like last week or whatever. Which is, I think I used the example spaceship. I might have cut it because I was trying to save time. It's already a very long video. But if we say spaceship, if you clearly enunciate it, you can still say the S for that C. It's pronounced as an S, right? Spaceship. That's perfectly fine. But in the flow of normal speech, and especially fast speech, we're much more likely to just change that S into an SH before an SH sound between words. So spaceship. So we just make it like a longer SH. And if you're speaking really fast, you don't even have to make it longer. You can just do basically drop the S completely and just do the SH in the next word. So spaceship. With once and she, okay, so if I clearly enunciate once she gets here, and you might do that to make it nice and clear, okay, that's possible. Or you can say once she. So now when we do once, right, it's just like TS. And how I said that there's an illusion, there's actually no T. It's the same with NS. This is one reason why I say the T is an illusion, because if it's an N plus an S, it sounds exactly the same as if there were a T plus an S. We go into that position, which N and T share, and then you push the S through that position. So once. Well, I'm doing this, it doesn't come all the way down, but once you push that S through, but now since the S is turning into an SH, you're going to push an SH through that position instead of an S. So once she. That's all you're going to do in that case. So as I said, the N makes it a little bit, it gives us a little extra step to make it a little trickier, but it's the same idea. The S is just going to turn into an SH before SH. So wind T E. No, bozo. Okay. I don't know what we're talking about. And Wendell retracted a message. I don't know if you're referring to what Wendell said or what. I don't know. But welcome, I guess. Let me know if you have any questions. But let's see. Personally, I leave out the S of once and follow it with she, once she. Yeah, exactly. You can do that too. As I said, you can actually kind of just drop that S completely and just do the SH instead of making it longer. So you can say once she or once she gets here, once she gets here, once she gets here. Perfect. I believe Josh mentioned in the last live that apparently S gets canceled before SH. Canceled or turned into a lengthened SH. It's not actually required to lengthen it though. I can't remember how blah, blah. I can't remember now, but is your can come out as no. It can come out as no. Don't know how to describe the phonemes and sounds like it's her. That's also not going to be pronounced like that either. So I don't know what's going on here, but okay, let's talk about this. So first let's do it's her. So it's her, you can drop the H. You're not going to change it because how I'm reading this, maybe this isn't how you meant it to be pronounced, but based on what I'm reading here, you're trying to say it's her as itcher. Itcher, like someone who itches an itch that you have on your skin. Itcher. That is not how you say that at all. That's going to be a completely different word. If you're doing it's and her, you can drop the H, which we will commonly do, and then the S is going to connect to the There's not going to be a TH or a CH sound there. It's not a ch. Okay, it's itser, 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 itser. So like now, if her is the last word, and especially if you're like, oh, it's her, right? We might emphasize and probably keep that H there. It might be a little more common. But if I say like, it's her turn, right? We're playing a game. I say, oh, it's her turn. It's her turn. Right? Where is she? I don't know. It's her turn. I'm trying to find her. So it'd be it's her. Okay. Again, you push that S through the T position, but it just sounds like sir. It's her. With is and your, so here, right, in it's an S sound. In is, it's a Z sound. So that's one thing to keep in mind because there's a lot of people that don't notice that because teachers don't tell you to focus on your ears for some reason. So how we would do this, we'd go, so your will very commonly reduce to your. It's not informal. It's just the thing that we will almost always do. You don't have to, but you should do it more often than not to sound natural. So we're going to go from zit to y, is your. There's no sh there. It's not sh. It's not zh. It's not is your. Maybe you can get a little bit of a blend into like a zh, like a very slight little zh as we sort of transfer, like is your. But that seems kind of weird to me. Maybe in really lazy speech, it should be zit to y, is your. Like, is your car fixed? Maybe it got broken, right? I say, oh, is your car fixed? Is your car fixed? A little bit of a je, okay, fine, but because it's a z and is, it's not going to be a sh, right? It might change a little bit to a je, but very small. It's not supposed to be like is your car ready? If you intentionally really try to do that clearly, it's going to sound kind of weird, I think. The S and the Y or the Z and the Y aren't really something that blend into like the SH and the ZH. I saw some things about that when I was doing some research for that lesson to kind of make sure like I had everything, and I saw some examples talking about what was it? I can't even remember. There was one talking about going from like S to Y, and it said it blends into an SH, and I was like, no, like in no way is that possible. But with these common words like is and your, like it can happen a little bit. But if you ask me, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just how I speak. I would say that's not really a big thing that happens. Moving on. Can it come out that way? Well, okay. Well, I already just addressed all that. So, sorry, I was not clear enough. For example, when saying he's lovely, schwa sometimes comes out he's a lovely. Okay. But you said don't drop the tip of the tongue, and I think that's what I was missing. Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's what I figured you were saying. And this makes a big difference. If you say he's lovely, that's the statement, right? You're describing him. If you say he's a lovely, now we need a noun, like he's a lovely person, right? Because if you don't say a with person, he's lovely person, that's broken grammar. So there's going to be a difference there if there's the a or not. If you hear that extra then we're going to be expecting a lovely what. Okay, so just that little extra sound can actually make it sound like you're not using the right grammar, right? Your pronunciation can affect how your grammar sounds. So yeah, definitely don't let the tip of your tongue drop down. You need full control over your tongue, and it takes some practice, takes some time. One thing I would strongly recommend to you is spend some time trying to pay attention how your tongue moves and feels in your language, because the more conscious you become of that, the better and more easily you're going to be able to adapt to how your tongue works in English, and make little changes that you need. It's actually like it's one of the secret weapons of pronunciation is becoming consciously aware of how sounds work in your mouth in your native language, because you already have a whole bunch of reference points. Um, right. The downside is you have a native language that causes interference with a new language, but the massive upside is that you have a native language and you already know how to do things. You're just not conscious of it. So if you become conscious of it, now you have all these tools and resources already built into your native language that you can then use to help you master the pronunciation of another language. But if you don't become consciously aware of what's going on in your mouth, then it's not going to help you at all. Um, darker. Yes, darker haired. Sorry, typo. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. No problem. I'm happy to share whatever I think will help. Or in the dialects, have you ever heard someone in California say wash, like wash? Okay, so this question, there are some people from some places, this is a dialectical thing. They do this in the South, maybe not all places in the South, but I know that there are speakers in the South that do this. Some country singers I've heard will say wash. Um, in fact, there's a song by Luke Bryan, Rain is a Good Thing, and he says wash in that particular song. Some people from Washington, like Washington State, will say it. Not all people, I think probably not even most people, but there are some people I know, not that I know personally, but I know there are some people up there that use that. So it's a weird dialectical thing. There's not supposed to be an R there. I don't recommend putting an R there. It makes it sound kind of uneducated. Say, oh, I'm going to wash my clothes. You know, it's not the biggest deal in the world. In fact, I think I sometimes, not all the time, I think I hear my grandma use it. She's from New York. She doesn't really have like a New York accent, really, but she has a bit of a different pronunciation. I would still say that she sounds very neutral overall. Um, but sometimes she adds that R there too. Um, or sometimes I hear my mom, instead of saying toilet, she'll say toilet. So that's another thing. And that's from my mom. Like I never do that. I don't say wash or toilet or something, anything like that. Um, so even in my own family, occasionally I'll hear stuff like that, and it just it doesn't sound standard. It doesn't sound normal. So I would ignore it, but it does exist. Yes. um, I'm always close to screwing up the pronunciation of "Do you remember?" The first R in "remember" is pain. Okay, sounds kind of Gen Z informal type. Is pain? It's like is fire. Yeah. So is painful probably be more normal to say there. The first R in "remember" is painful. But well, I'll give you a little hack here. Um, if you're speaking, it doesn't even have to be fast speech, just normal speech. You can actually drop the first syllable of remember, or at least the R part. So if I say, do you remember the other day? Do you remember? Do you remember the other day? Now, if I say that more slowly, more clearly, oh, do you remember the other day? Now it sounds a little weird, but if you're speaking at a normal speed, you actually don't have to say that first syllable. So that's a little trick there. You can just make it easier on yourself. But obviously, that doesn't work if you need to more clearly say it. So ideally, you do want to practice and be able to do that. But this is just like I was talking about earlier with like E reducing either to I or and they're both fine. This is another case where you can do that. So maybe trying to say remember is hard, right? Remember. Um, you can try to reduce it to a schwa, say just nice and short, remember. That might be easier. Or if you can't quite do that, if you can do reduce it to re, Again, reduce it. Don't make it nice and clear. Remember. If one of those variations makes it easier, just use that variation because they all sound perfect and they're all perfectly fine. Do writer and writer sound the same in your accent? Writer and writer do sound the same in my accent, and I would say that they sound the same in general American English across the country. I don't know why people keep bringing this up because it's very strange to me. Like everybody that I've heard across the country, I've never heard an American say these two words differently. Like even Southerners. Now, obviously, I don't know everybody. I haven't been everywhere. I haven't been exposed to every speaker in the country. But I don't think I have ever, in my entire life, regardless of where a person is from, heard an American speaker say these two words differently. No part of it is different. Okay. In British English, of course, they'll say writer and writer, right? They'll make a T and a D. But in American English, we know that the flapped D gets triggered in both of these cases. And so it becomes the exact same pronunciation, writer and writer, writer. So I'm a writer, I'm a writer, I'm a writer, or well, that'd be writing. Okay, so yeah, no, exactly. I'm a writer as in writing, and I'm a writer as in I ride a horse, right? I'm a horse rider. So I'm a book writer, I'm a horse rider. I'm a book writer, I'm a horse rider. Exactly the same pronunciation. Which remember, my accent, technically there is a bit of an accent, but I still sound very neutral, right? The middle of the country, especially the mid-north, they also have an accent, right? It's not like they're the standard and I have the accent. It's that if you ask me, I'll tell you I sound neutral. I don't have an accent. If you ask somebody from Illinois, they'll tell you they don't have an accent. If you ask somebody from Western New England, they'll tell you they don't have an accent. If you ask somebody from Alaska, they'll tell you that they don't have an accent. I'm trying to think of some other places. Probably Kansas. Most people probably tell you they don't have an accent. And it's true, but it's also false. Okay, remember. So and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with your question. Like your question is good. It kind of bugs me because it's like I don't have an accent. I technically have an accent because there are little tiny sound differences, but I have a neutral sounding accent, just like most people in the country, regardless of where they're from, except for the South being the big region that's an exception for that. So yes, the way I would put this is in American English, overall, writer and writer are pronounced the same. That's how most Americans pronounce them. Also, what's up with S plus CH combination and in question in Australia? I often hear the SH sound there, but some people said it's supposed to be S plus CH. Could you shed some light on that? Okay, good. This is a good question. Thera says, yeah, I don't know what that's reference to. I'm so far behind. Okay, so in question, what was this question? Mention question. So, things can get kind of weird. How the word question is supposed to be pronounced is question with a CH. If I am being a little more lazy in my speech, or especially if I'm speaking faster, instead of closing into the T and blending into a CH, right? Because T plus SH is CH. I might either very lightly touch that T position and not actually completely close it, or just completely ignore the T position and make it into more of just an SH and say question. I have a question. And that's perfectly fine, especially in faster speech. There's nothing wrong with that. So you can do S plus CH or S plus SH, and it doesn't matter. Okay. Now we were talking about earlier between two words, the S before an SH will actually change the S into an SH. So can that happen here? I have a question. Yes, the exact same thing can happen. You can actually drop the S in question and just make it a SH. Now, if you're enunciating, I wouldn't do that. You say, like, I have a question. That's going to sound weird. But you say, I have a question. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay. Now, Australia, this can be a bit different depending on the speaker because we have T plus R consonant. And the way some people pronounce that is like trail, So Australia, and other people will blend that T into a CH before the R consonant, not the R vowel, just the R consonant, like I do. And we'll say Australia, Australia. Now, in this particular word, I notice that sometimes I don't blend it, and I'll say Australia. So it kind of doesn't matter. But as for S and CH, so we have the S and os, and then ch, as I said, right, blending that T and that R. So, like, for example, if I say train, there doesn't have to be an S before it, right? It's just that T plus R constant, train. It could be train with a T or train with a CH. Different people do different things. I usually use the CH. In Australia, as I said, I apparently use both. But Australia. I'm much more likely to use the CH, I think, because that's how I usually do the T plus R consonant. Now, let's see. Could we do like what we did in question and maybe kind of change the CH into just an SH? Australia. Australia. It's a little hard to do. Maybe in fast speech, yeah, you can kind of just make it into an SH. Australia. That's fine. Can I completely drop the S? Australia. No, that one does not work. That's a little too much there, probably because of the presence of that R. Just a little too much. So yes, but the SH is a possibility. I just wouldn't drop the S. In fact, what I would generally recommend is if you're clearly enunciating, do S plus CH for these words. If you're just speaking kind of normally or a little lazily or really quickly, then still do the S, because dropping the S won't always work inside the words, but still do the S and then just do an SH, and it's going to be perfectly fine, if that makes it easier for you. So this is another good example of why I say it's dynamic, right? The pronunciation in American English is dynamic, and there's often more than one answer. This is a really good case where it's supposed to be pronounced one particular way, but especially with speed, there's other things that can happen that it doesn't sound informal, it doesn't sound whatever. It's another thing to do that still sounds perfectly fine, right? And the speed can usually really help you because it tends to obscure certain things where when you clearly enunciate, now if you try to do those same things, it's not going to work. It's going to sound weird. So that's part of the dynamic flow is, are you clearly enunciating or are you speaking normally or quickly? Usually you can do more over here than over here. And that's also another reason why I say don't always enunciate everything, because people don't always speak over here. This is a tool that we use. If you're always over here, you're not blending things or changing things the way they're supposed to happen normally. You're going to sound unnatural, which is why I don't recommend Elsa, because Elsa teaches you to speak over here. And it sounds weird, aside from the fact that I'm a native and it didn't give me a 100% score. So the AI isn't good enough. But anyway, that's enough about that. I hear very light SH in Australia too, or frustrating. Yeah, same thing. Frustrating. In frustrating, you can actually go straight into an SH in that case. In Australia, it sounds kind of weird if I do Australia. Maybe, but it sounds kind of weird to me. In frustrating, it sounds a bit better. So I don't know why. Whatever. But I think it's a small side effect of the co-articulation movement required as you go from S to the TR cluster. Exactly. That's why a lot of these blending and shifting and sound changes happen. It's because of what's physically happening in the mouth. It's not like we randomly in American English just say, t and yeah. If I say what and you, I'm going to magically change this into ch because I can. And we Americans like to be difficult. No, it's because the T is here, the y is here. And if you speak quickly, ch, right? It acts very naturally that way. That's how most of these changes happen. I know this is totally random, but I'm looking at your t-shirt, yeah, and I'm seeing something that's very similar to Cap's shield that's covered in blood. I'm seeing things. No, you're seeing things right. Yeah, Captain America. It's a Winter Soldier. I kind of don't like this. It's a shirt that I found at a used store, but I liked it. I was going to sell it, but I like it. So, yeah. Ugh, Captain America. And I like it because it's covered in blood. So, yeah, you are not seeing things. Never thought about that. That's a great tip. Splendid. Perfect. Do you use the same vowel for the chai part? Chai. See, that's how I'm going to read it. It's not going to be kai at the start. It's going to be chai, like chai tea. In, how do I even say this? Archaism, I think. And archaic. Or is there something unique going on in both of them? Yeah, it would be the same. Saying like archaism or archaic, like this, it's not right. It's a K sound. Oh, but yeah, no, I'm so focused on the ch part. Is it the same vowel? Um, archaic, archaism, archaism. I guess archaism. I think maybe I've heard that word said like once in my entire life. But yeah, I'm gonna say basically yes. The stress pattern might switch, but yeah, it would be the same vowel sounds. Um, you could tell I'm Gen Z just off of that. Well, not quite. I wasn't necessarily saying you were Gen Z because I know like some millennials have kind of adopted certain phrase like fire. Like I'm a millennial. I don't usually use fire. I don't say, "Oh, that's fire." But I saw that being used in places, and I was like, "Okay, well that makes sense." um, so just like the way that you worded it, saying like it's pain, it that's not normal grammar. We would say it's painful, right? Like in the sentence you had it in, trying to say that R is pain. Like it just sounds to me like that same pattern of like, oh, it's fire, right? So it sounded Gen Z to me. So that's interesting. So if you're Gen Z and you're learning English, you're probably getting, well, I mean, you're getting input from a lot of people, obviously, but I assume a lot of the media that you're consuming and stuff, maybe on TikTok or YouTube or whatever, would be people around your age, maybe a little older like me, millennial. Um, and so you're actually maybe starting to adapt some of the speech patterns a little bit, which is interesting and probably a good sign. Although be careful because some things can sound very informal. Like saying that's fire, that actually sounds kind of informal. So maybe not to a Gen Zer, I don't know, but to me as a millennial, it sounds a bit informal. Um, it makes me sound like I'm ancient or something. Not that old, but I'm sorry to give you this example, but it happens in the song "Into Club." Into Club. Isn't that the one that goes da 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 da? Anyway, it's playing in my head, I think. I was curious to know what he was saying, so I searched for the lyrics, and he makes that with "It's your birthday, it's your birthday." Okay, okay. Well, so before, right? You put "It's her," not "It's your." Or wait, hold on, because I think we had two different ones. Yeah, because so you put "is your," not "it's your," and then you put "it's her," um, not "it's your," and then now we're saying "it's your." So I don't know if you had a typo up there, um, or I don't even know if that was the same person. I'm assuming it's the same person. Yeah. Uh, so, but as for this particular issue, this can blend into a ch, but not for what the reason you're thinking. Um, in I don't even want to call it completely informal. It's like semi-informal. It just sounds a little more informal. Um, there sometimes this okay, what I'm about to describe will sometimes sound a little bit less formal and sometimes will sound a lot less formal. Okay, so a lot more informal. And it depends on exactly what we're doing. So what this person is actually doing is they're not blending its and your, they're breaking the grammar and they're blending the T that is, it doesn't actually exist in its, right? But they're dropping the S completely. They're taking the T in it and they're blending it with the Y in your. And we know that T plus ya is ch. So they're saying itcher. Okay. Now, if the S wasn't there, that's how we would say that, itcher. Okay. But that's broken grammar. This particular example is a common thing that many speakers will do. Many native speakers will break the grammar like this. Especially because we have this sort of, it's not even a song, but it's like, I don't even know if Gen Z does this, or I think it's a millennial thing because I kind of grew up with it. Um, but like, let's say you did something good, like you're playing basketball and then you shoot and you score and you're like, oh yeah, it's my birthday, right? And we do the whole motion and everything. So there I'm saying my, right? But let's say you did it and I'm celebrating for you. I'm like, oh yeah, it's your birthday, right? Not it's your, which we could say, but we're likely to actually break the grammar, drop the s, and just blend the t and the yeah and say it's your. Okay, so this is actually a special case, and this doesn't sound really informal. It sounds a little bit informal, but it's kind of like just like it's a playful use of the language. Um, and so it doesn't really sound too bad. Now, if you break the grammar the way that some people do sometimes, where instead of saying like "What are you doing?" like as a question, you say "What you doing?" That sounds more informal because you're completely dropping a whole word, right? Which I guess in it and is you are dropping a word as well. But I don't know, for whatever reason, whatever weird reason, some, as I said, will sound more informal, some won't, and it's a tricky thing. But that's what's happening here. So it's actually blending the t and the y into ch. So the way you wrote it, it's like ITCH. I would actually put it like this. Sure. Sure. There's no T there anymore at all. So good observation and good question. Yeah. To be fair, I've never seen any American doing it. You're the first to pronounce both diphthongs the same. In what? In the archaic thingy? Or did we have a previous question? See, this is from Finn. What was Finn's previous question? Because we're talking about diphthongs now. Both diphthongs the same. Yeah, it had to be the question with archaic, I assume. I don't know. I don't know. Or are we talking about? No, I was thinking about earlier. We're talking about think and thank. I don't even know what this is referring to. Let me know what it's. Oh, and writer and writer. Everyone I asked said they sound slightly different. That's weird. It's very very weird. What I would think. Because maybe I'm the one who's wrong here. I do know I have very good ears, but there are still things that in English I am still kind of learning to hear because I never had to hear them before. Like I could never hear, um, say in like what was it, like people saying people with like a schwa there. Like I had never heard that before until relatively recently. Um, because I've started to like more train my ears for American English. I never had to do that before. So there's some things based on my dialect that my brain compensated for, and that happens for all speakers. There's going to be speakers from other parts of the country that still sound neutral, that they don't really notice some things that maybe that I do, because the brain compensates. But either way, uh, what I would assume, because I could be wrong, I admit I could be wrong. I'd be very surprised if I was wrong here. But I think that this is a visual bias because we know that, of course, we're very visual creatures primarily. But more importantly than that, when we think of writer as in somebody who writes, um, like we see the T, we associate the letter T with that. Now, we don't pronounce it with a T, but we associate it with the T sound or with the T letter, sorry. So if we think of somebody who writes, we think of that spelling. And then if we think of somebody who rides something like a horse or a bike or whatever, then the W is not associated with that word in our mind, with that the image of like someone riding a horse. There's no W that comes up in the word, and it's a D spelling. And so the visual letter-based representation in our mind, depending on which one we're thinking about, will actually have the certain letters associated with them. Okay. As soon as I think of somebody who writes, like that W just like comes to my mind, the W and the T. It's just like they just go with the image. The spelling goes with the image. And so I think, I could be wrong here, I think that maybe the people that you're asking, right? You say everyone I asked said that they sound slightly different. I think that they have a visual bias, and they're not actually hearing that they're the same, because in their mind, they're clearly different. Because I can tell you that too. Writer and writer, when I think of them, when I think of these words, I don't think of them as being the same. I don't think of them as being pronounced the same. But when I pronounce them, they're the same. um, so I think it's a trick of the mind based on our visual bias that we have. Um, but again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's people in parts of the country who say it differently. I don't know. It's called Canadian raising, but most Americans have it too. There's no raising here. Raising happens with ah. There's no ah here. I can clearly hear it. Mm. What's raising? The I? Mm. Writer, 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 writer. Okay, tell me which one I'm saying then. So I'm just gonna pick between the one with the T and the one with the D. Tell me which one I'm saying. Writer. I know I kind of skipped the line here, guys, but just 1 second. Don't worry, I'm gonna get back to your questions. Okay. See. Writer. Wrong. I said rider, and I was picturing it in my head too. Let's try it again. Writer. Okay. So that could be the case. And that also means that you don't have to do it. Because remember, I still sound neutral. So that makes your life easier. It's easier to do the raising because I don't see why it would be easier to have to make a difference between two sounds when you can pronounce them the same. I don't know if you're saying it's easier though, as in not having it, or easier as in having it. I think you mean easier having it based on because it's natural. Well, whatever. Either way, you don't have to do it. Like that's why I say there's no raising, because as we clearly just demonstrated, I don't have the raising, which means you don't have to do the raising. Having the raising is easier because it's natural. I don't see how it's natural. Like I'm not doing it. Does that mean I'm speaking unnaturally? Like, um, so I mean, you can do whatever you want, right? Whatever you like is fine. Your accent is your accent. If you do the raising, apparently I haven't really heard it from people, so I don't notice it. So it's still going to sound natural and neutral. Um, so that's good. Then you have the ears for it. You can hear it. That's great. No problem. So do whatever you want there. You're going to sound great either way. Apparently. Um, Part of my whole purpose is to make things simpler for you guys. So if just like with like the cot merger, right? So you could either use two sounds that you have to put into certain different words, the ah and the aw, or you can just have one sound that goes into all those words, right? It makes it so much easier. So if you have the pronunciation of writer and writer, where you can have one where you have one version where they're pronounced differently, and you have another version where they're pronounced the same, I would say it's easier to make them the same. Um, so that's how I would teach it, even if I did have the rising or whatever here, and I said them a little differently. I would teach them as being pronounced the same. If I knew that there's speakers like me who do pronounce them the same and still sound perfectly natural, because it makes it easier for you guys. So I would still teach it that way either way, but you can do whatever you want as long as there's a good amount of native speakers who do it that way and they sound neutral, then that's fine. So this is a point where I think you can just pick whatever you want and it doesn't matter. So interesting. That explains a lot to me because other people were mentioning that, and I was like, "There's no raising there. What are you guys talking about?" I was so confused. So yeah, you don't have to do that. But okay. It happens in another song too, but I don't remember which one. I'll try to find it. Okay, yeah, the birthday thing. I can't find it. I have no idea where that happens too, but I heard it happening twice. I don't hear it often, so I guess it's not common. Maybe something regional. I don't know. Maybe, yeah. So over the weekend, when researching clicks, a phonetic term like that, I discovered that apparently native speakers of English sometimes do dental clicks. That speaking, this is usually like that. Which we would write TSK, yeah. Like we don't say like that's weird. We might say tisk 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 or something, but that's like if we do the sound, it would be yeah. One dictionary definition mentioned people do it when they're expressing disapproval. Exactly, yes, very much so. So you were out drinking last night, right? We usually have this motion here, like no, no, it's bad. It's a no, no. So yes, correct. You are correct. By the way, was there a question in there? No. Okay. By the way, why do British/UK folks write ERR when they mean to say, okay, so when they mean to say the filler pause sound people make when they're thinking of what to say? I don't know. I haven't written to a lot of British people. I will say that is another filler or pause sound. So instead of saying at least in American English, is and are very, very common. But you can say I don't really know. Like we do sometimes use as well. Maybe in British English, they tend to use more in speech. I don't know. I'm not British. So, but that doesn't matter because I'm teaching American English. So I don't know. Sorry, don't have the answer. Because they're weird. There we go. No, British people are cool. Along the lines of S plus CH. Something. Okay, is that same with train and drug? It is CH and DG. Okay, so don't let the IPA fool you, because I think it's came for the IPA. Okay, so there's the ch sound, and there's the j sound. Okay, now the ch in English spelling is usually written CH, and the j is usually written J, with the letter J. In IPA, you get these weird fancy symbols and stuff, and it's that's also another problem I have with the IPA because like for say the ch and the j sound, how they write it is like for ch, you'll see the symbol for T, and then you'll see the symbol for SH, right? Which is technically accurate because it's t plus sh, but it's not to sh, right? Like that's how I would interpret that. It's its own sound, right? And there's a symbol. It's ch, right? It's not to sh, it's ch. Same thing with d and j. Okay, so when you do the ch sound, you're in the T position, and you push the s. No, you don't push the sh through. You blend the t and the sh together. So you're not just pushing the sh through. That's a little different. You're actually going to release the t, but immediately you're going to sort of slide it in a way that goes into the sh and blends into ch. So ch instead of like sh ch ch. That'll kind of sound like a ch. We were talking about that earlier. Usually ts, right? Is we push the s through the t going to sh. That's a special case like in question that you can maybe do. But anyway, the ch, right? With the voiced version, right? So if d is voiceless and sh is voiceless, voiceless, and they blend into ch, which is voiceless, then d, which is voiced, and zh, which is the voiced version of sh, the sh, will blend into j, which is the voiced version of ch. Okay, so yes, the exact same thing can happen. So some people will say train and drug, but other people, such as myself, will say train and drug. And it doesn't matter. You can pick whichever one you like. They both sound fine. They're both neutral. You'll hear both of them from different people. But I usually use the CH one, or the CH, the ch version. Now, again, remember that's only with the R consonant, not with the R vowel. If it's the R vowel, like this word, you can't say train here. It's terrain. Okay, so it has to be terrain, because that's the vowel sound. On your left, yep. Oh, come on. Anyway, but I don't have the Falcon shirt. I have the Captain shirt. So on your left, yeah, that's right. Roger, could you please pronounce a few words using lower placement American and a different placement any foreign accent in comparison? That comparison would be very helpful. So when you're talking about placement, you're talking about like the whole thing with the throat and like the thingy, because I don't know if you saw my lesson on placement, but it is not too much of a thing. So I'm not really sure how to respond to this. I guess I did notice that, like, say for example, if you're a French speaker, a little bit of trying to shift your vocal tract can actually go a long way. Because if I try to sound French, for example, because the French R and stuff is in the back, there's like a lot of French sounds that to me, I don't actually speak French, but a French accent to me sounds kind of like they try to keep everything in the throat, like they're holding everything back a bit, and so. Um, which is going to be a horrible French accent. I apologize to any French speakers. Just sorry, but it's like I am from France. You know, like oh yes, we have very many good things in France, and we I don't know. We like to embrace many different peoples, but we prefer for them to speak French, just like when people go to America, you prefer for them to speak English. But that didn't sound like French at all. I don't even know how to say English with a French accent. Um, and in order to do that, especially with all those R's, I'm really trying to like catch a lot in my throat, like glug, 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 glug. So that's a special case where, because especially the French R is placed that way, that in order to, again, I don't think the placement as a whole has that big of an impact. It's more the sounds and the tongue placement, like where you're putting the sounds in the tongue and how you're using your tongue. And all this can have a bit of an effect, but it's not the main thing. But again, for French, a little bit of a special case because of the R, because of some sounds that tend to get caught back here. You can maybe relax that forward a little bit, and actually get some benefit. That's why I say in my placement lesson, depending on your language, it might help you a bit to make some sounds more easily if you do a little bit of shifting, but it's, again, not the biggest thing. So if I try to compare this, I guess, if I try to do like the American and the weird French thing that I did, so if I say like, I don't know, I'm from France, and I don't even remember what I said, but I'll say this. My ancestors are from France, not all of them, but quite a few of them. And so I have French blood, right? If I say, my ancestors are from France, obviously, because I sound French. Not all of them, but yeah, so I have French blood. Like, I don't know, something like that. I don't know how that would be useful for you, but I guess hopefully that helps. um, so let's see. Does pretty have, right? Because it's one word, it's one thing. So does pretty have different pronunciations? Don't get confused by the fact that pronunciation is plural. That doesn't matter, right? We're saying like does he like it? So does he have dogs? Right? Still does he? So it's does pretty, the word pretty, have different pronunciations. I mean, however, I've heard people saying eh in the first vowel and e in the second one. I've heard eh in the first vowel and it in second. Well, let's see. Pretty. So I would do I in the first vowel, E for the second one, where the Y is. I've also heard it or for the first vowel, Like pretty. I don't know who's saying it that way. That I can't even imagine that. And if for the second vowel, like Prede. Oh, it's starting to sound kind of southern a bit to me. Like, you know, well, actually, no, because there's a couple ways I hear Southerners say it. They'll shift the R and they'll say purdy, like, you're purdy. Or I've heard some Southerners say, like, it's pretty good, it's pretty good, pretty. That's not standard normal pronunciation. Maybe based on like, say, maybe if like somebody's from Oklahoma or something, and they kind of have a little bit of an accent that's not standard, doesn't quite sound neutral, and so like maybe you might hear somebody who otherwise sounds pretty much like I do, and then they pronounce pretty that way. It's probably a weird case like that where like based on their exact region and the closeness to places that might pronounce it that way, they happen to say the word that way. That's what I would assume, um, because it sounds like it's a regional thing. It's not a standard way to pronounce it. So, yeah, I would ignore that. It's supposed to be a plus e, pretty. Yeah. Does dig, as in I really dig, aka like your shirt, have a past tense? Because saying I really dug the show yesterday sounds super weird to me. Yeah, so sometimes when we have different uses of a word, like dig turns into dug, right? It's changes, it's irregular. Sometimes if we use it in like a newer, different meaning, that's not like the traditional meaning, which this isn't new necessarily, but it's newer than the original meaning. Sometimes we'll actually change it to the standard past tense. But in this case, if you say like I really digged the show, it doesn't sound good to me. I can maybe imagine somebody saying that, but it doesn't. It's weird. No, I really dug the show yesterday. But see, saying dug also to me does sound kind of weird, and that's probably because we don't tend to use dig as in like in the past tense very much. In fact, what we'll probably do if we are talking about the past, like, oh yeah, when I was a kid, I used to dig that, right? So used to dig. So that makes it past tense, and we don't say dug. Like, oh yeah, I really dug that when I was younger. We tend to avoid using that form with this meaning. So that's probably why. So you're on track. That's good. That's fantastic. You're on the right track. And I would say that probably don't use dug with this meaning. Just maybe used to instead. Okay, we're at almost 3 hours, guys. So we're gonna have to finish up here pretty quick, pretty soon, which looks like I'm starting to catch up. And I see another sticker from John here. W sound. How tightly do you pucker your lips? Pucker, that's a nice word. I wouldn't even say pucker necessarily, but it's pretty close to puckering. Because pucker is like, right? It's where you make that like kissing sound. So it's like really like pushing the lips together. Maybe also like sucking in to make that really tight. So pucker isn't the best word here, but that's okay. We're it's semantics. It's you want a super tiny hole. Now, the inside of the mouth, this is one of the secrets to the W, right? I have a lesson on the W. Go watch it. But which else, as you'll see in the video, the inside of the mouth is actually quite open. This is one of the tricks and one of the problems that people have when trying to make the W sound, especially if your W and V keep getting mixed up. The inside of my mouth, right? If I say ooh, and then I just relax my lips, but I don't change my jaw, you're going to see how open it is. Ooh. That's my jaw. Ooh, ooh, ooh. So the mouth is actually quite open, but the lips come out and narrow so much that there's just right. It's not completely closed, but it's a ooh, 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 ooh. If you don't do it that much, now in faster speech you can get a little lazy, but if you're trying to clearly pronounce the sound and you do, for example, like ooh, 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 it's not going to sound right. Okay, so it needs to be very, very tight, very narrow, not closed, very narrow. And you might have to develop a little bit of extra muscle in your lips if you're not used to doing that. So it's a good question. I actually have one Patreon supporter who doesn't seem to be here. He hasn't made any comments. But he's a high tier Patreon supporter, so I've been doing. I did a couple consultations with him so far. And the W sound is one thing that he's working on, and he's having a lot of trouble getting that muscle for the W sound. So it's a common problem. You have to actually build a little bit of muscle to really get your lips out and tight, right? And it is possible to kind of overdo it. So you don't want to like stop the airflow, like see if you start feeling the air build up, that's too tight, right? So anyway, yeah. Where am I? I have no idea where I am. I'm lost. Okay. I think some speakers might prolong the I diphthong ever so slightly in writer, more so than in writer. So you get a very small difference in vowel quality akin to seed and seed. Well, I would disagree with that on all fronts. Maybe it's true that some people do that, but the only difference between seat and seed is the T and the D. The vowel is exactly the same. The vowel seems, it's an illusion. The vowel seems to be a little bit shorter in seat because the T is voiceless and we have to drop the voice of the vowel to go into the T, where going into seed, which happens with the same length, we don't have to drop the voice as we go into the D. And so it creates the illusion that the vowel in the first word is shorter. But anyway, that aside, the problem with this is that there's a flap in both, and you'd have to slow down and over-articulate them for what I said to make sense, because once the flap is there, they're homonyms. Well, then all the more reason to say them exactly the same. Make it simple. Sometimes it's fun to split hairs and this and that. Sometimes it's useful to do that, but if they can be pronounced the same way, pronounce them the same way. It doesn't freaking matter. Okay, so I missed this earlier because I was doing the comparison with writer and writer. So Finn said instead of I, it's more of an upside down V into I. So upside down V would be what I call like a stressed or more clearly enunciated or articulated schwa, because they're basically the same sound. So it'd be So if I say I, I, like writer, writer. Now I sound British. Oh, he's a writer. He's a writer. We got a writer here. Something like that. Like if I actually try to do that sound, nah, not at all, not at all. That just sounds super strange to me. It's not even the same word, and I'm speaking in a different dialect now, a completely different dialect. So anyway, moving on. What is racetine? I think you mean raising. I'm talking about raising, because racetine is not a word. They were talking about something with the raising of the vowel in like writer and writer, those two words, which doesn't exist in the way I speak, so you can ignore it. There is raising with the ah sound, which I'm going to talk about in the lesson that I am making now. So hold tight for that use of raising. But you can ignore it for what we were talking about with that. I have a bad habit of pronouncing about like Canadian, so it sounds like a boat. They don't say a boat, they say a boot. It's an ooh, not an o. It's just easier for me. A boat. I don't think I've ever heard a Canadian say a boat. It's a boot. Boot. What's that a boot? Anyway, it doesn't matter. If you say a boat, it's going to sound very strange in American English, at least. Maybe not Canadian English, but in American English, yes. A boat what? Yeah, it's going to be weird. Raising, yes. I'm confused. What? I'm confused about the schwa sound because I heard in one of the YouTube coach Shane's videos saying that the word two has 7 pronunciations. Ta, da, ta, da, t, d, and two. Ta and da, somebody mentioned something like that before, and I want to see. I'll try to look it up, because I don't. The last time somebody mentioned that, I don't think they mentioned the person. I don't remember. I'll try to look that up. Maybe he's talking about some sort of weird thing that can happen, but off the top of my head, saying two as ta and da, or ta and da, I assume it's supposed to be ta and da, doesn't make any sense to me. Like that I would say that's absolutely 100% completely wrong. But I'd have to see what he's talking about, to confirm. In fact, which chain pronunciation of two. He is correct technically about the other ones, but I have a little trick for you to make this easier. Color versus color versus color. I'm not seeing him talk about two. I know you can't post links in the chat because YouTube is stupid like that. But if you can give me like the name of the video or something, I can look that up because I'm not seeing it in the search results. But what I will say for the t, duh, and then like the t, d, those are the same. Those are the same. Like he's splitting a hair where it doesn't have to be. Like the T with the little apostrophe and the D with the little apostrophe. Right, which remember with the D, that's only if the sound before it is voiced. It can become a flapped D, like Goda. So that is a possibility where the T might change into D. That does exist. But the difference between the like TUH and then T with the apostrophe, as he's apparently saying, that's the same thing. It's just that he's probably trying to use the one with the T to make it sound like it's just the T sound, when which technically it could be just the T sound, but that's part of the full range of the schwa. The full range of the schwa starts in the upside down V, and it's and then that range goes all the way up to non-existent, to where there's no schwa and there's just the consonant sound left, either the consonant sound after or the consonant sound before it. In this case, it'd just be there's not actually a schwa there necessarily, but it's reduced so much that it's just gone, and we're left with the T. So I would count t and t in the context of the word two, not in terms of pure sounds, but in terms of the word two. That's just two ends of one range. So it's the same thing basically. And then two is as I said earlier, it's the fully enunciated version of the word with oo, two. So that is true. But the ta and da, that's extremely strange to me. The one where, oh god, see, this is another reason I don't use IPA. Ry, ra. I guess that's supposed to be a flap D since we're talking about writer. Writer, 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 writer. So ra. So I guess I would try to say the first one writer, and the second one is writer. Ra. Like my tongue doesn't even want to go that way. Writer. That's how I would say it for the word writer, but writer stays the same. It doesn't make any sense to me. That's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. But if people say it that way, then they say it that way. So the A sound is my problem, not matched. Jet. What's the jet? You mean yet? Not matched. Yeah. So talking about like with the have and stuff, I guess. Probably. I want to make sure. I don't know if you're trying to say matched yet, as in YET, because matched jet, that's kind of confusing. If you mean yet, see, this is another reason why I say ignore the IPA, because you have to learn a whole new set of symbols. And in the IPA, the letter J represents the Y sound. But in English, you have to spell it with the letter Y because it's a Y sound. So the IPA can throw the alphabet off in your mind and confuse you like that. So if you're trying to say yet, make sure you don't write a J. It's a Y. If that's not the case there, and you're trying to say something else, then elaborate or clarify that. But what syllable is stressed the most in lemonade, promenade, and colonnade? That. Lemonade, promenade, colonnade. Yeah. So it'd be the first syllable. Fernando Velasquez. Welcome. Hello. Is was pronounced was, or was? See, God, I hate this. The IPA makes me really want to use the F word, you guys, like a lot. Like, okay. Anyway, I get what you're saying. This is actually one case where the IPA can be slightly useful because we're talking about these variations. But let's make it simple. The middle one, I would say, maybe some people say it that way. Doesn't exist. You don't have to care about it. The other two, the one with the upside down V and then the one with the upside down E, or sorry, the one with the upside down E, the first option, and then the last option with upside down V, or looks like an A without the line in the middle. I have a lesson called The Truth About the Schwa. Okay. And I talk about how those two symbols, the upside down E and the upside down V, are actually, in American English at least, maybe not in other languages, but in American English, they are basically the same sound. And many teachers will tell you the same, even Rachel's English, as far as I understand what I've heard. She says the same thing. It's not just me. And the truth about this is that if you have a sound that uses an actual true schwa, what I call a true schwa, which is the upside down E symbol, okay, like your first option there, then it's going to be short, it's going to be quieter, it's going to be very small, okay? Was. Now, that is never supposed to be stressed. However, if I say, for example, of, right? Of is another word that uses a schwa. Of, right? Nice little schwa. However, if I say these words more clearly, I'm going to try to more clearly enunciate them for whatever reason, okay? For whatever reason. There's reasons that we might do that. So if I say the color of the sky, I'm going to open up more towards that upside down V, okay? Of the sky, the color of the sky. Or if I say he was here instead of he was here, okay? If I have a reason to stress it, emphasize it, enunciate it, it's going to move more towards that upside down V. Now, let's say we have a word with the upside down V, like, I don't know. I think of a word here. Shut. Shut should have it. Yeah. Okay. So if we take the word shut, has the upside down V, right? And I say that nice and clear, right? Shut. 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 Okay. Now, even in normal speech, right, it's stressed. Okay, so it's going to be a little by nature, it's going to be a bit louder. It's going to be a bit more clearer because of the stress, right? There's more force to it. But if I speak faster and or maybe a little more lazily, that upside down V will actually turn into the upside down E, the schwa, the true schwa, right? So if I say shut the door, shut the door. Okay, so these are actually just like two endpoint of a range for one sound, the upside down E and the upside down V. I call them both the schwa, okay? Because even though technically the upside down V is not the schwa linguistically, in American English, they are basically the same sound. And so to make things simple, I call them both the schwa. It doesn't matter. It's just a label. So the answer to your question is the first option and the last option are both perfectly fine. It depends on how you're saying it. If you're was is usually not stressed, right? It's just to be. So if I say he was there, He was. It's going to be the upside down E. If I say, again, like if I emphasize it, like, well, he was there, but now he's not, right? It's going to open up a bit more. It's going to get a little bit louder. And so naturally, it's going to move more into that upside down B. That's going to be true, right? If the word is unstressed normally, you want it to be more of a true schwa, the upside down E. Then if you have a reason to stress it or maybe say it more clearly and stuff, you can open it more towards the upside down V. The opposite is true the other way. If it's a word that is naturally stressed, okay, then you're going to start more towards that upside down V, which is a little more open and more force. And then if you speak faster and more lazily, it's going to close more towards that upside down E. So they just go the different directions based on the amount of stress and how quickly you're saying them. Okay, that's the difference between the two in reality. So that is the answer. First one and last one are both possibilities depending on how you're saying it. The middle one, maybe some people say it that way, but it seems strange to me. Was or something like that. I don't know. Cool. I have one more question regarding. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to shut down the questions, guys. No more questions. We're almost done. We were almost done. No more questions. We're over time. Yeah, we're over time. So no more questions. Sorry, we're gonna have to try to finish this up. Okay, I have one more question regarding placement because you're so on point whenever you're answering that topic. If you do an extra nasally placement, what does your at end up sounding like? Good question. And let's settle this once and for all. Let's say Savas constant intonation, the whole 9 yards are on the fleek, are on fleek, but the placement is weird. On fleek. I'm not too familiar with fleek. I think that means like really out of place or wrong or something. I don't know. Oh, maybe I guess that means, oh, okay, the whole 9 yards. So I guess that means like perfect. Okay, so your first question. So remember the at, like if it's before N and M, which I'm going to be talking about in this next lesson, there will be a little bit of nasal in it anyway. But let's say I really try to make it extra nasally, like you said, right? So if I'm trying to speak kind of like this, right, and then I make a nice good sound, the it's gonna sound really weird and really annoying. Okay, so yeah, that's why I said in my placement lesson, if you are super nasally, you're going to want to try to bring that down a bit. That's where it's going to start sounding weird. But if you're like here or whatever, like it's not going to make too much of a difference. That you're going to sound perfectly normal. It just might affect your ability to make certain sounds, and so you might want to make little changes in order to help your tongue get into a little bit better position for some sounds. Maybe if needed. So and let's settle this once and for all. So okay, so let's say the vowels are perfect, the consonants are perfect, the intonation is perfect, everything's perfect, but the placement is weird. Does that matter? In the case of, like I just said, if you are very, very nasally, right? So say like Vietnamese speakers, and I think maybe also some like Filipino speakers or Tagalog speakers, they can sound very, very nasally. And that's fine, it doesn't matter. But in English, in American English, if you are super, super nasally, if everything else is perfect, like you're able to hit all the sounds 100%, right? And you have good flow, you have good everything, you just speak really, really, really nasally. Best case scenario, most people are going to think that you sound annoying. Just like Fran Drescher, right? Like, I don't know if she has a bit of an accent. I didn't dial in too much on the exact sound she uses and stuff, but she has a very nasally sound, right? And a lot of people find it annoying. At least when she was doing The Nanny, you know, but obviously it was a popular show, so I guess we liked something about it. Because most people don't have this really, really nasally voice. Now, at the end of the day, so what? You sound nasally. Who cares? But if it's not a nasal thing, like as I said, okay, if I'm here, so obviously all of my consonants and everything are on point, right? Like they're going to be natural because I'm a native speaker, right? So let's say I try to shift my placement down a bit. Okay, so maybe my voice gets a little bit deeper because the pitch is naturally going to go down a little bit as I shift down. But then let's say I kind of trying to come up in my throat a bit, like I've done this before, right? And I don't really sound that much different, maybe a little bit higher pitch or whatever. Now, if I try to speak a little bit from my mouth, kind of, we might start getting a little bit of a different change because now some of the vowels are maybe kind of in a little bit of a different place as I'm trying to keep my placement up through here a bit instead of like here or here. And then if I come all the way up into my nose, right, things are going to start getting a bit weird. So the only one that really sounded weird and out of place there was the one that was super nasally. Right, you can be a little bit nasally and it's fine, but if you're super nasally, it's going to sound weird. So that's one reason why I say like the placement is not the biggest thing. It can help, it can have an effect, but I am, we would say flabbergasted. That's a good word. If you don't know the word, you can look it up. Flabbergasted. I'm completely shocked and mind blown of why Rachel would say that in Rachel's English would say that placement is like the biggest, most important thing that can like help shift your entire pronunciation and stuff. Like maybe for some speakers, maybe. I think it's the icing on the cake, right? It's like it can get you a little bit extra depending on what you need. But what you're doing with your mouth, with your tongue, how you're placing the sounds, how you're moving your mouth, regardless of what's going on with the rest of your vocal tract, um, that's going to be like the biggest, like 80 to 90% of it. So maybe I'm wrong, could be wrong. And do you feel like you're changing your placement when speaking Spanish or Japanese? That's a good question because I've started to try to pay attention to that. And I mean, I don't really speak these very much, but Japanese, I really have no idea because like my Japanese is so rusty, and I was completely oblivious to this concept way back then. And so like I don't even know what I would have done back then anyway. And so, but for Spanish, let's see. I don't think I want to speak Spanish right now. It does seem to me that I do have a very slight shift in placement, not to the point that I would expect. Um, and I tested this with one of my students too. It's not to the point where you would expect because Spanish is supposedly compared to English, it's supposedly spoken like a little bit higher and a little bit more in the mouth or whatever. And I don't have that kind of shift in placement, but it does seem that I have maybe a little bit of a higher pitch, and I can kind of feel a little bit of different with my vocal tract. Um, pero si hablo español y estoy hablando de, no sé, ah, quizá mi voz suena un poco más high. My Spanish is rusty, guys. Um, Estoy fuera de práctica. Pero a mí parece que sí, mi pitch, I don't know the word pitch, but my pitch is a little bit higher. It seems to me like my pitch is maybe a little bit higher when I'm speaking Spanish, but like that's kind of all. Like, um, and from what I've been told, yes, I don't sound 100% native, especially because I don't have the R down 100%. But like I've asked people and they say, yeah, you sound really good. And I'm out of practice right now and I still probably sound really good. Maybe not 100% perfect, that's fine because I never perfected it all the way, but um I sound good, right? I don't sound like a gringo, like, oh, quiero que me hables de algo así, right? I want you to talk to me about something like that. Quiero que me hables de algo así, right? Like I don't sound like I have an English accent, like at least not a very clear, strong English accent. So I don't know, but I definitely don't. I don't do much with the placement, and I still sound great. So thank you for the explanation about placement. No problem. Rookie questions, just to make sure what I have been taught is right. There's a chance that it was wrong. Message retracted. That was wrong. No. For example, would okay. Okay, so wood is one of the examples. So wood, word, worlds, war, wall, work, wow, wacky, etc. How do you pronounce deluge? Straight out of left field. Okay, so John, I don't know the question about these W words, like how to pronounce them. Or do they use the same vowel? Like I don't know, because you have a message retracted, and then you say, for example, blah blah blah. So I don't know what your question is there. Um, for Hector, Mr. Hector, how do you pronounce deluge? Like that? Deluge. Deluge. So it's a j sound. Deluge. Yeah, it's not a j, it's deluge. One of the relatively few words that use the j sound. It's like the least common consonant sound. Another rookie question: what's the difference between in option and in about and now? Okay, well, the difference is that there is no in about now. So option uses yes. And since I have the merger, it's just going to be back here, option. About uses the schwa sound, which is It's not it's and if you have trouble hearing the difference there, that's a common problem, hearing the difference between and I have a minimal pair lesson for that. You can check that out. But it's not about, it's about. Okay. And then now is also completely different. It uses the ow diphthong. So it starts in right at the start of the diphthong. Now. So that doesn't have it's not now. It doesn't have a schwa, it's not no or anything like that. So these are three completely different sounds in these words. Which, by the way, the sound in now and the sound in the bout part of about is the same. About now. About now. About now. Yeah. Can I'm not sound like I'm not or I'm not? Okay, that's a good question. I'm not. No, so the N can shift over to M, but I don't think M shifts over to N, right? So if I say no, that's an M. Hold on. One into M. One Monday. You can say it one Monday. One Monday. If you're clearly enunciating, it's going to start to sound weird, but in the flow of speech, like, oh, yeah, there was this one Monday when I saw him at the store, right? Perfectly fine. So it's shifting, as I talked about in my recent lesson about linking. But I don't think M usually shifts over to N. It doesn't go the other way around. And especially in this particular case, at least here between these two words, we don't want to do that. See, because we need I'm, right? Like I am, and then not. The not is very important there. So if you say I not, if you drop the M and try to make it into like two N's, it's just going to sound like broken grammar, like I not. And I can imagine maybe in the pronunciation of some people in the, again, sort of like the hip hop rap type speech that you might find, which again is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not the standard. They might do something like that. Maybe sort of make like a longer and like I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. Like I don't know. I'm not an expert on that. It sounds like maybe something that could happen there, but from the standard perspective, like to my ears, it sounds like broken grammar. If you try to say I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. Again, maybe from that type of speech, it could possibly be a thing that some people do. I don't know, but now it just sounds like you don't have the word not. Like there's no negation. It's just like what is mot? So no, the answer would be no. It's the end. I'm too delayed. Too late. Not too delayed. If you're delayed, yeah, I see. This is a very similar word. Delayed is not the right word here. Late. I'm not. It's too subtle of a difference, and I don't have time to explain the difference right now. God, it's already been like more than it's almost another half hour. Okay, we have to finish this up. No more questions, guys. No more typing. I want no more. Oh, Fernando. Fernando, sí. O quizá en el portugués, Fernando. Something like that. My Portuguese pronunciation is a lot worse, but Fernando, sí. Anyway, where was I? Lost my spot. No more questions, guys. Because I'm gonna if we get more stuff, I'm gonna have to at some point. I'm just gonna have to like cut it off without answering anymore. So let's no more. I gotta finish this up. Okay, so my final question for today is about the word yakuza or yakuza. Yeah, I want to say yakuza because, like, I actually know something about Japanese, but in English we would probably try to call it. We would say the yakuza. We reduce ya to ya, yakuza. Um, English dictionaries list really weird pronunciations that are uncomfortable for me to say, like yakuza. Yeah, like I don't even know. Like another reason to ignore the IPA. It's just yakuza. Maybe we'll keep the ah, say like yakuza or something, but uh, I don't know if this is a scam call or not. I'm gonna cancel it. Ignore. Anyway, maybe there's some variation in the way that some peepers that some people say it. I was gonna say people and person at the same time, and peepers. But yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. I'm curious what you're doing. Yeah, yakuza. Okay. Is it probable that these ends turn into M's? On me, on my, in me. Yes, very probable. Very, very probable. Unless you're more clearly enunciating. So in the flow of speech, like say you buy a round for the bar, right? So the next round's on me, on me, on me. Perfect. No problem there. Yeah. Or it's on my car. It's on my car. There's a cat on my car. Cat on my car. Um, in me. So I need to get some more water in me. You get some more water in me. You slow it down, you start speaking a little more clearly. It's going to start to sound weird. So you want to keep normal speech or faster speech. That's the trick. But otherwise, there's no problem with it. Yeah. Sound is what I found difficult. So like as in cat. Because I know some teachers write for what I would say is ah because they don't teach the merger. So that might be a little unclear. I assume it's like have. That actually might be the source of the confusion here. But the sound like in cat, that's a very difficult sound for all English learners. So it's something you got to work with. I have lessons about it. I actually have a little trick that might help you in the upcoming lesson about before n and m, because there's a trick that can apply to all uses of that you can do. It's a little hack you can use in all cases. So wait for that. That might help you a little bit. But otherwise, you gotta just keep playing with it. Get feedback from from a native or whatever. Try to find a partner or a tutor a cheap tutor that can just tell you how you sound. They don't have to teach you. They just have to tell you how you sound, and you can try to make little changes. The iconic loud ass car made an appearance. Say yes. Yes, it did. Boycott the IPA. Cancel IPA. Yes. Hashtag boycott the IPA. Yes, do it. Boycott the IPA. I'm totally for. I want a T-shirt. I'm gonna make that into a shirt. I'm gonna sell it on the channel as soon as I think I need 10,000 subscribers to open the merch store. And once I do that, I'm gonna make a shirt that says hashtag boycott the IPA. Yes. Yes, and then people are going to wear it and they're going to be like, "What do you have against beer?" Right? Because IPA is also a type of beer. Most people won't get it, but that's okay. I will wear that shirt every day. Q&A to pronounce. There are 7. This is the okay. Q&A to pronunciation. There are 7. Let's take a quick look at this. Nobody better be writing any more comments because we gotta finish up here. Remember. Okay. In fact, I might want to save this for next week because this might take me a second. Come on, slow computer, hurry up. Andale. I can't hear anything. Why can't I hear anything? What's up with my audio? Okay, so there's something up with my speakers. I don't know what's going on because I assume you guys can still hear me, but I can't hear audio, and I don't know why. So Wendell, next week or whenever the next time you come, mention this again to remind me, and I'll take a look at it then because I'm over time and I don't know what's up with my audio. So we will get to that. Um, clarify the ah sound. But what I will say is that again, using ah or either way in for two, I can't imagine that. I really can't imagine. And he's using his examples like I have to go, I went to the store, I don't want to. In none of those cases would I use ah. Like I have to go, I have to, like no. So anyway, I'll double check it later. But unfortunately, we're gonna have to save that for another time. Is there a rule for when to round your lips for the R? I've heard it's only in the beginning of words, but I round my lips for the word around. LMAO, your nasal face is so funny. Your nasal voice is so funny. I know, right? So annoying. Anyway, is there a rule for when to round your lips for the R? No. In fact, you never have to round your lips for the R. That's one of the things that I wish other teachers taught more. But from what I hear that other teachers teach, they tell you like, okay, the lips, supposed to right? Lips kind of come out, and that's true. That's a very common thing that natives want to do when pronouncing the R, probably because of some under the surface relationship to the W sound, which is a whole other story. But it's not required to make the sound. Now, there's a little bit tiny difference in the exact quality if I do put my lips out, but an sounds like an This is not going to matter. So it is something that we commonly do naturally like to do, but you'd actually never have to do it. I have had some students where like everything sounded really good, but they weren't using the lips. And when I told them to add the lips, probably because it was starting to open a little bit more, it actually sounded better. And so depending on your specific case, if your it sounds a little bit off or whatever, which apparently in your case you sound fantastic. But if it does seem a little bit off for whatever reason, and then you bring the lips out, then I mean that could maybe help you a little bit, but it's not required to make the sound. So there would be no rule for that. And you say it's only at the beginning of words. So if I say, I don't know, article, R, R. So I don't have to article. I could bring my lips out a little bit. I don't feel kind of like I really need to or anything. So I would just ignore the lip rounding. If you do it when it's at the start of words, fine. No big deal if that's what you're used to. But I just wouldn't worry about it. Yes. See, there's that yes again. Senor Joshua. It actually be Joshua. H there. Joshua. Y ahora, en la próxima hora, vamos a hablar del idioma español. As in now, in the next hour, we're going to talk about the Spanish language. W, you already answered. Yes. Okay. About uses ow diphthong. No. Okay. So yes, ow. Right. I transcribe it like this. OW. That's the English Hacks phonetic transcription way, which if you haven't heard about that yet, there should be a link in the description. But I have my own phonetic transcription method that I use. So yes, it would be like an about. Okay, about. And you have to be careful because in English, sometimes OW is O, and sometimes it represents ow, right? And then of course AU can also be a spelling for ow, or actually no, I think maybe sometimes it's ow, but AU is usually audio. Okay, just like AW is a silent W, silent U is usually right? So that's why I picked certain like high frequency spelling patterns from English to use as my phonetic transcription, but you got to be careful because we always want to focus on your ears, right? But yes, so I use ow diphthong, just like now. Now uses the ow diphthong also. Message retracted. Why would you retract it? Why? Why you gotta do that, man? That's okay. Okay. Yeah, the R there. Realmente. I can't do the R, guys. Like, I never mastered that R, but realmente pronunciaste como un nativo el nombre Fernando. Yeah, I already saw that. No worries about the question above. I know it's been almost 2 hours already. Okay, good. I should have said, what's the clear difference between and because some say sound, but the slight modification of okay. So again, remember in terms of spelling, right? Like this. Okay, this is just the ah sound. Okay, it's spelled AU in English, but AU and AW are usually just two spelling patterns for the ah sound. Okay, which for me is merged ah into ah. So it's the fifth vowel on the chart, as I say. But yeah, so I think that's just to be clear there. So you're talking about like between the clear difference between the ah sound and the ow diphthong, because some say ow is ah plus oo. Okay, if I do ah and oo, ow, ow, now, how. Okay, it's not ah. I've talked about this a bit before. You can look up the lesson on the I or the ow diphthong. The I and ow diphthong they use the same starting place, which is going to be more towards the front. It's like centered towards the front, kind of. You can look it on my vowel chart too. I have it on the diphthong vowel chart. Download on my website, which you can find in the description. It's very close to ah, except ah has a bit of a special shape to it, and it's a little farther forward. And it's going to be kind of between ah and the unmerged ah sound. And then you go from that up into like book, but this only happens in this diphthong. It's very special. You go from ah, but as you go into you bring the lips around, which we do for o, oo, and ow, but not for like book. Okay, only in this case you go ah, bring the lips around. Ow. Ooh, ooh. So it's gonna sound kind of like ooh, but it's actually not an ooh. If I go into ooh, it'll be ow, ow, ow. It's too high. Just like if I do I, but I go all the way up into E, it's not actually E, it's the second sound. If I go up into E, I, it's too high. Okay. So the ow diphthong has nothing to do with the ah sound. That's a completely separate sound, and they're not in any way connected. Don't worry about the question above. Thanks a lot as always. Thank you so much for all your time. We appreciate it very much. Have a wonderful day. Thanks a lot. Yay, we caught up. Okay, good. Done. Done. Now I'm going to sit here for 10 minutes. All right, guys. Good live again. Very productive. I think we're getting to the point where, like, I'm not going to be able to answer all the questions, right? We're not there quite yet, but it's getting to that point. And I'm not sure how we're going to handle that. Obviously, right, more super stickers, super chats, right? I'm not just saying that to help me, but if you guys want to stand out, make sure you get your things answered. There's going to come a point where there's just so many comments, I can't answer everybody's comments. And so those super chats are going to be more important. And it's going to hurt me because I want to answer everybody's question. But when we get more people in here and so many comments, I'm not going to be able to answer every single question because it's just going to take me too long, right? Especially as I go through each one in order. So sorry, but we're going to hit that point at some point, probably soon. I don't know exactly when, but in the meantime, I will try to answer all of your questions. Thank you guys very much, as always. And if you have any other questions, you can leave them after this video in the comment section, or you can save them for next time and we'll try to get to them. So, and don't forget Wendell to come back with the ta thing to remind me. I might remember, but probably not. So yes, take it easy for the rest of the day. Ha ha. Good advice. Yeah, nice joke. Nice joke. There is no easy for me. I play life on hard mode. um, but yeah, no, thank you, and see you guys next week. Do.